This is Daniel Rothman, and you're tuned to 204.7 FM. It's just past 6 in the morning on what looks like another clear Tuesday here in the city. Traffic's already building up on the westbound lanes near the harbor. Nothing unusual there, and we've got temperatures sitting at about 52 degrees, expected to climb into the mid-60s by this afternoon. Not bad for this time of year. I got my coffee here, black as always, and Emily just handed me the morning reports. Looks like we've got some updates on that construction project downtown, the one they've been working on for, 8 months now? The old Riverside Tower site. They hit some kind of delay yesterday afternoon, something about finding an old structure underground. City engineers were called in. Whole thing got shut down for a few hours. They're back at it this morning, though, so whatever it was, they must have cleared it. Let me tell you, I've been doing this job for 17 years, and I've seen this city dig up everything. Old subway tunnels, Prohibition-era basements, even found a whole street down there once, just buried under decades of development. This city has layers like you wouldn't believe. Every time they break ground on something new, they find something old. It's like archaeology, except instead of ancient civilizations, we're finding failed parking garages and forgotten utility lines. Emily's telling me we've got a caller waiting, someone asking about the construction site. Let me get to that. Emily says it's a woman, Lisa, whose husband works at the Riverside site. She's asking if we know anything more about the delay yesterday. Well, Lisa, from what I'm hearing, they found some kind of concrete chamber, sealed up, probably from the 60s or 70s. The city's looking into it, but they cleared the site to continue work, so your husband should be fine heading in today. These old buildings, they used to build all kinds of storage spaces, utility rooms, things that just got sealed up and forgotten when new construction came through. Nothing to worry about. Traffic update coming in now. We've got a fender bender on the north side right near the junction, slowing things down. If you're heading that way, maybe give yourself an extra 10 minutes. The morning commute is always something in this city, isn't it? The thousands of people all trying to get to the same places at the same time, packed into metal boxes, crawling along at 5 miles an hour. Sometimes I think about that, about how fragile the whole system is. One broken traffic light, one stalled car, and suddenly 50,000 people are late for work. But that's the rhythm of the city. That's what makes it alive. You can feel it, can't you? Even through the radio, you can feel the pulse of it. Millions of people all moving, working, living, dying, all in the same few square miles. It's remarkable when you really think about it. Terrifying, too, a little bit. All those lives all pressed up against each other, depending on systems most people never think about. Water pipes, electrical grids, food supply chains, it all just works until it doesn't. Emily's giving me a look. She says I'm getting philosophical too early in the morning. She's probably right. Let me give you some music here, and we'll be back with more news after this. We're back. Daniel Rothman, 104.7 FM. It's 20 past 6 now, and I'm looking at some interesting reports coming in from overnight. There was a small fire at one of the hospitals on the east side, St. Vincent's Medical Center. Nothing major, contained to a storage room. No injuries reported. Fire department handled it around 3 in the morning. These things happen in buildings that old, electrical systems from the 70s trying to handle modern equipment loads. Speaking of St. Vincent's, Emily just mentioned something odd. She's got a friend who works night shift there, nursing staff, and apparently they had an unusual number of admissions last night. Respiratory complaints, mostly. People coming in saying they couldn't breathe right, tightness in the chest, that kind of thing. Could be related to the weather, could be flu season starting early. We'll keep an eye on that. The construction site downtown, the Riverside project, they're running full crews this morning. Emily got an update from the city planning office, and apparently that chamber they found yesterday was definitely from the Cold War era. Sealed concrete room, thick walls, the kind of thing they built when people were worried about atomic bombs and fallout shelters. Can you imagine that? Living in a time when people were building shelters in their basements, stockpiling canned food, teaching kids to hide under desks. We think we've got problems now, but at least we're not doing duck and cover drills. They opened up the chamber yesterday afternoon, the construction crew. Found some old containers inside, metal drums, that kind of thing. City sent someone from Hazmat to check it out, standard procedure, and they cleared it. Whatever was in there, it's long gone or harmless. Probably just old civil defense supplies, water containers, medical equipment, things like that. The Cold War is over, has been for decades, but we're still finding its leftovers buried under our street. Got another traffic update here. The westbound lanes are clearing up a bit. That fender bender got moved to the shoulder. If you're heading into downtown, you should be okay now. The morning rush is in full swing, but it's moving. That's all we can ask for, right? That it keeps moving. Now, I'm sitting here looking out the window of the studio, 6th floor of this building, and I can see the city spread out below me. Office towers catching the morning light, Cars streaming along the highways like blood cells through arteries. It's beautiful in its way. Chaotic and messy and beautiful. Sometimes I think about all the people out there, everyone listening right now, sitting in traffic or getting ready for work or maybe still in bed, and I wonder what they're thinking about. Probably not about viral outbreaks or buried Cold War bunkers. Probably thinking about what to have for breakfast, whether they remember to pay the electric bill if their kid needs lunch money. The small things. The things that actually make up a life. Emily's telling me we've got reports of some kind of incident at a bar on the south side. Police and ambulance responded around 4 this morning. Details are sketchy right now, but it sounds like someone got sick, really sick, collapsed inside. They transported them to St. Vincent. That's the second thing from that hospital this morning. Probably just coincidence. Cities this size, there's always something happening somewhere. Medical emergencies, fires, accidents, the machinery of urban life grinding away, and sometimes people get caught in the gears. Let me read you something here. I've got the morning newspaper in front of me, actual physical paper, which makes me a dinosaur, I know. Front page story about infrastructure spending, another story about the school board budget, third story about a local restaurant closing after 40 years. That's the one that gets me. 40 years in the same spot, serving the same neighborhood, and now it's done. The owner's retiring, no one in the family wants to take it over, so that's it. One more piece of the city's history gone. Happens all the time, but it still feels like something worth mourning. What time is it now? 6:35. The sun's fully up now and we're into the proper morning. Traffic reports every 15 minutes, news updates on the hour, and the best music from the last 5 decades in between. That's what we do here. That's what I've been doing for 17 years. Some people might think it's monotonous, the same routines day after day, but I find it comforting. There's something solid about it. Something reliable. People tune in and they know what they're going to get. In a world that changes too fast, maybe we all need something that stays the same. Emily's got another call about the construction site. This time it's someone asking if the area is safe, if there's any contamination risk from whatever they found down there. That's a fair question, actually. When you find sealed chambers from the Cold War, you never quite know what you're dealing with. But like I said, hazmat cleared it. The city wouldn't let workers back in there if it wasn't safe. At least that's what we have to trust. That the systems work, that the safeguards are in place, that someone's actually checking these things properly. You ever think about trust? How much of modern life depends on trusting people you've never met? You trust that the water treatment plant is doing its job, that the food inspector checked your restaurant, that the mechanic actually fixed your brakes. You trust that pilots know how to fly, that doctors know how to heal, that the guy who built your building knew what he was doing. Most of the time that trust is well placed. Most of the time everything works fine, but sometimes it doesn't, and that's when you realize how thin the margin is between everything working and everything falling apart. I'm getting reports now that the hospital, St. Vincent's, they've had 6 more admissions in the last hour, all respiratory issues. That's starting to feel like more than coincident. Emily's trying to get someone from the hospital on the line, see if they'll talk to us, give us some kind of official statement. In the meantime, if you're feeling any kind of breathing difficulty, chest tightness, fever, you should probably go get it checked out. Better safe than sorry, right? Traffic's heavy on the South Loop now. Looks like an accident or a breakdown in the right lane. Emergency services are en route. This is what mornings are in the city. A constant stream of small incidents, minor emergencies, the regular chaos of 7 million people trying to move through space at the same time. Most days it all works out. Most days everyone gets where they're going. Let me give you some music here. This is an old favorite, something to ease you into your morning. We'll be back with more news at 7. 7 o'clock news update. Daniel Rothman here on 104.7 FM. Let's go through what we know this morning. The construction site downtown at the Riverside Tower project is operating normally today after a brief shutdown yesterday when workers uncovered a sealed Cold War-era chamber. The chamber contained old storage containers which were examined by city hazmat teams and cleared as safe. Work continues on schedule. St. Vincent's Medical Center on the east side is reporting higher than normal emergency admissions this morning, primarily respiratory complaints. Hospital administration says they're monitoring the situation, but there's no cause for public concern at this time. Could be seasonal allergies, could be an early flu strain, could be any number of things. We're staying in touch with them and we'll update you as we learn more. Traffic incident on the South Loop has been cleared. One vehicle removed from the roadway, no serious injuries reported. The morning commute is heavy as usual, but moving steadily. Weather today looking clear and mild, high of 66 degrees, light winds from the west. Good day to be outside if you've got the chance. And that's your 7 a.m. news. Emily just handed me a note saying she's got someone from the hospital willing to talk, so let me read you what they're saying. This is from Dr. Patricia Mendez. She's the overnight ER supervisor at St. Vincent's. She says, and I'm quoting here, "We've seen an uptick in respiratory cases overnight, but this is not unusual for this time of year. We're treating patients according to standard protocols, and there is no public health emergency at this time. We ask that people with mild symptoms contact their primary care physician rather than coming to the emergency room to keep our resources available for those who need them most." So there you have it. Official word from the hospital. Nothing to panic about, just a busier night than usual. Emily's still got that concerned look, though. She's usually right about these things. She's got good instincts. I've learned to pay attention when Emily gets that look. Let me tell you about Emily. She's been my producer for 6 years now, and she's about half my age, which makes me feel ancient. She grew up with the internet, with social media, with information moving at the speed of light. Sometimes I think she sees patterns faster than I do because she's used to processing everything all at once. She's checking 3 different news feeds right now, scrolling through social media, monitoring police scanners, all while lining up the next music track and organizing my notes. I can barely work my phone half the time. She's pointing at her screen now, showing me something. Social media posts from people saying they're sick, having trouble breathing, and they all seem to be connected to the south side of the city. That's interesting. That's where that bar incident was this morning. And St. Vincent's is on the east side, but it's the closest hospital to the south side, so maybe there is a pattern here. Maybe it's localized to one area. Could be something environmental, a gas leak maybe, or some kind of industrial accident nobody's reported yet. Emily's calling the city environmental office now. She's good at this, better than me probably. I'm better at the talking part, at filling the air, at keeping things calm. She's better at the digging, at finding the story under the story. It's 7:15 now, and I'm looking at the call board. We've got 17 calls waiting, which is way more than usual for this time of morning. People wanting to talk about the hospital situation, people asking about the construction site, couple people saying they're sick or their family members are sick. This is starting to feel bigger than I initially thought. Let me take one of these calls. Emily says this is Marcus calling from the south side. Marcus, you're on. Emily tells me Marcus works at the Riverside construction site, and he's saying he doesn't feel right. Started this morning, tightness in his chest, hard to take a deep breath. He was one of the guys who was down in that chamber yesterday afternoon helping clear out the old containers. He's asking if he should go to the hospital. Marcus, yes, you should absolutely go get checked out. St. Vincent's is probably your closest option. Tell him you were exposed to that underground chamber. Tell him about the symptoms. They'll take care of you. And Marcus, do me a favor, call us back and let us know you're okay. Will you do that? Emily says he's going to head over there now. Good, that's the right move. But this is concerning, isn't it? Guy works in the chamber yesterday, feels sick this morning. Could be coincidence. Could be he caught a cold from his kid or ate something bad. But combined with everything else we're hearing, the hospital admissions, the south side incidents, it's starting to form a picture. Not a clear picture yet, but something's developing. I need to be careful here. The last thing I want to do is cause panic. This is what they train us for in journalism school in broadcasting. You don't yell fire in a crowded theater. You present facts, you stay calm, you give people information they can use. Panicking doesn't help anyone. But I also have a responsibility to tell the truth. If something's happening, people need to know. Emily's got someone from the city environmental office. They're saying they haven't had any reports of gas leaks or industrial incidents in the south side area. Air quality monitors are all reading normal. So it's not environmental, at least not in the traditional sense. What else could it be? Food poisoning doesn't usually present as respiratory symptoms. Allergies? Possible, but why such a sudden cluster? Flu? Maybe, but flu doesn't usually hit this hard this fast. I keep coming back to that construction site, that sealed chamber. Hazmat cleared it, but what if they missed something? What if there was something in there, something that's been sealed away for 60 years and now it's out? That's a scary thought. I don't want to go down that road yet. Let's stick to what we know. Workers found an old chamber. Some containers inside, probably civil defense supplies. Hazmat checked it and cleared it. Now some people are getting sick, including at least one person who was in that chamber. That's what we know. Everything else is speculation. It's 7:30 now. Let me give you some traffic updates, and then we'll have more music. The morning commute is at peak volume right now. Downtown core is congested, all the usual spots. If you're heading in, just be patient, leave extra time. We'll get through this together, same as every morning. Emily's showing me something else now. She's found posts on social media from people saying they were at a bar called Donovan's last night on the south side, and now they're feeling sick. Multiple people, same bar, same symptoms. That's the bar where the ambulance was called this morning. This is definitely a pattern now. Something happened at that bar or something spread at that bar, and now people are sick. She's trying to find out if any construction workers from the Riverside site were at Donovan's last night. That would be the connection, wouldn't it? Worker gets exposed in the chamber, goes to the bar after his shift, spreads something to other patrons. That would explain the cluster. I'm trying to stay calm here, trying to keep my voice steady, but I'll be honest with you, I'm starting to feel uneasy about this. 17 years I've been doing this job, and I've reported on a lot of things. Building fires, traffic accidents, crime sprees, political scandals, economic crashes, but this feels different. This feels like something new. Or maybe I'm just overthinking it. Maybe by tomorrow morning we'll all laugh about how we got spooked over a flu outbreak. I hope that's the case. I really do. Let me read you something else from the news here. There's a story about the city budget, about how they're cutting funding for public health services. Isn't that ironic? On a morning when we might actually need those services, I'm reading about how they're being reduced. That's modern governance for you. Cut everything until you need it, then wonder why it's not there. Emily's got another hospital update. St. Vincent's is now at capacity in their emergency room. They're asking people with non-urgent issues to go to other hospitals. That's significant. That's a busy ER on a Tuesday morning in a major city, basically saying they're overwhelmed. When was the last time that happened? I can't remember. She's also saying that 2 other hospitals in the city are reporting increased respiratory admissions. So it's not just St. Vincent's anymore, it's spreading whatever it is. I need to choose my words carefully here. I need to inform without frightening. But how do you do that when the information itself is frightening? All right, here's what I'm going to say. If you're listening right now and you're experiencing any unusual symptoms, respiratory difficulty, fever, chest pain, anything that doesn't feel normal, please seek medical attention. Call your doctor first if you can to avoid overwhelming the emergency rooms. If it's serious, obviously go to the ER, but let's try to be smart about this. Try to keep the medical system functional for the people who need it most. And if you were at the Riverside construction site yesterday, particularly if you were inside that underground chamber, or if you were at Donovan's bar last night on the south side, please get checked out. Just to be safe. Just to make sure. There. That's responsible reporting, I think. Give people the information. Give them clear guidance. Don't speculate beyond what we know. Emily's nodding. She agrees with how I handled that. That makes me feel a little better. It's 7:45 now. Let me give you some music and we'll regroup with more news at 8. This is Daniel Rothman on 104.7 FM. We're going to get through this together, whatever this is. 8 o'clock news update. The situation is developing rapidly, and I want to give you the most current information we have. Multiple hospitals across the city are reporting unusually high numbers of respiratory emergency admissions since early this morning. St. Vincent's Medical Center has reached capacity and is directing non-critical patients to other facilities. Riverside General and Metropolitan Hospital are also reporting higher than normal volume. The common factor in many of these cases appears to be either proximity to a construction site on Riverside Avenue where workers yesterday uncovered a sealed Cold War-era underground chamber, or attendance at Donovan's bar on the south side last night. City health officials are investigating a possible connection. We spoke earlier with Marcus, a construction worker who was inside the chamber yesterday and is now experiencing respiratory symptoms. We're hoping to hear back from him once he's been evaluated at the hospital. The city's Department of Health has not yet issued any official statement, but Emily is in contact with them and we're expecting something soon. Traffic continues to be heavy across the city, normal for this time of morning. Weather remains clear, temperature currently 54 degrees. That's your 8 a.m. update. Let's talk about what we're actually dealing with here, because I think we owe it to you to be straight about this. In 17 years of broadcasting, I've never seen a situation quite like this. We have what appears to be a sudden outbreak of illness, centered around 2 locations, possibly connected. The timeline suggests rapid transmission. People were in that chamber yesterday afternoon, possibly at the bar last night, and now they're in hospitals this morning. That's fast. That's concerning. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm a radio host who reads the news and plays music. But I can read patterns, and this pattern doesn't look good. Emily's telling me something now. She's got a friend, the one who works at St. Vincent's, and she's saying things are getting chaotic there. They're setting up additional triage areas in the parking lot. They're calling in off-duty staff. That's not standard procedure for a busy morning, that's emergency protocol. I'm trying to think about how to frame this for you. How do I tell you something might be seriously wrong without causing mass panic? Because panic doesn't help. Panic clogs the roads, overwhelms the hospitals even more, leads to bad decisions. Here's what I think we should do. Stay informed. Keep listening. Don't make any sudden decisions. If you're sick, get help, but call ahead first. If you're not sick, go about your day, but pay attention. Have a plan. Know where your family is. Make sure your phone is charged. Keep some supplies on hand. Water, food, basic medical supplies. Not because something terrible is definitely happening, but because it's always smart to be prepared. That's reasonable advice, right? That's not fear-mongering. That's just common sense. Emily's shaking her head at me. She thinks I'm downplaying it. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm doing what I always do, trying to keep everything calm, trying to maintain order. But what's the alternative? Tell everyone to run? To where? This is a city of 7 million people. There's nowhere to run. It's 8:15. We're getting more calls now, dozens of them, faster than we can answer. People wanting information, people reporting sick family members, people asking if they should leave the city. That last one bothers me. The fact that people are already thinking about evacuation means this is escalating faster than I realized. Let me try to get someone official on the line. Emily's been trying the city health department for the last hour. Maybe she can get through now. While she does that, let me tell you what I'm seeing out the window. The city looks normal. Traffic's moving, buildings standing, sun shining. Everything looks exactly like it should on a Tuesday morning. But I know and you know that what we see isn't always what's real. The city could be falling apart at a microscopic level, something spreading through the population, and we wouldn't be able to see it from up here. We'd only see it later when the hospitals overflow, when the systems start to fail. I'm thinking about disease, about how it spreads, about the Black Plague, about the Spanish flu, about SARS and Ebola and all the other outbreaks humanity has faced. We always think we're immune, that modern medicine will save us, that it can't happen here. But it can. It always can. Emily's got someone. She's got Dr. Raymond Chen from the City Department of Health on the line. Finally, let me see what he has to say. Emily's relaying this to me. Dr. Chen says they're aware of the cluster of respiratory cases. They're investigating the connection to the Riverside construction site. They've sent a team back to the site to re-examine the chamber and the materials found there. They're also investigating the bar, Donovan's, to see if there's an environmental factor there. He's saying the public should remain calm but vigilant, and anyone experiencing symptoms should seek medical care immediately. That's it? That's the official statement? Remain calm but vigilant? That's not very reassuring, Dr. Chen. That's bureaucrat speak for we don't know what's happening, but we don't want people to panic. I shouldn't be critical. He's doing his job, same as I'm doing mine. But I wish we had more concrete information. I wish someone could tell us definitively what this is and how to stop it. Emily's looking at social media again, and her face has gone pale. She's showing me her screen. There are videos now, people posting from inside St. Vincent's emergency room. It's chaos in there. Patients in hallways, nurses running, someone screaming in the background. This is bad. This is really bad. And now she's showing me another post. Someone saying their husband worked at the construction site, came home yesterday afternoon covered in dust, and now he's unconscious at home. Ambulance can't get to him because they're all tied up. The person is begging for help online because there's no one else to call. How many people are we talking about here? How many sick? Emily's trying to compile numbers from social media, from scanner traffic, from hospital contacts. She's saying at least 200 confirmed cases, probably more. And it's only 8:30 in the morning. 200 people in how many hours? Let's say the exposure was yesterday afternoon, around 4 p.m. when they opened that chamber. That's 16 hours ago. 200 cases in 16 hours. And if each of those people has been in contact with family, coworkers, strangers on the bus, how many exposures does that create? Thousands? Tens of thousands? I'm doing math in my head, exponential growth calculations, and I don't like where the numbers go. If this doubles every few hours, if it keeps spreading at this rate, we could be looking at the entire city being sick within days. Maybe sooner. Stop. Breathe. I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't know that it's doubling. I don't know the transmission rate. I don't know anything except that people are sick and it's getting worse. Emily's got another update from the construction site. The hazmat team is back there and they're in full containment suits this time. That's different from yesterday. Yesterday they went in with standard protective gear. Today it's full suits. That tells you something right there. That tells you they're taking this seriously now. She's also hearing that the site has been completely sealed off. No one in or out. Police have established a perimeter. Anyone who was there yesterday is being contacted and told to report to medical screening centers that are being set up. This is starting to look like a containment operation. I need to say something to you, the listeners. I need to be honest with you. This is serious. This is not the flu. This is not allergies. This is something we haven't seen before, and it's spreading fast. The city is responding. Medical professionals are working around the clock, but you need to take this seriously too. If you have any connection to the Riverside construction site or to Donovan's bar, you need to get screened immediately. If you're experiencing any symptoms at all, isolate yourself and call for medical help. Don't go to the hospital in person unless it's critical. You'll just expose more people. Call ahead. Follow their instructions. If you're healthy right now, stay that way. Avoid crowds if you can. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Basic hygiene stuff, but it matters. It could save your life. And stay tuned to this station. We're not going anywhere. As long as we have power and equipment, we'll be here, giving you information, keeping you connected. That's my promise to you. It's 8:45. Let me give you some music while Emily and I regroup and figure out what's happening. This is 104.7 FM, Daniel Rothman, and we're going to get through this. 9 o'clock news. The situation has escalated significantly in the past hour. I'm going to give this to you straight because you deserve to know what's happening in your city. Hospitals across the metro area are now reporting over 500 confirmed cases of severe respiratory illness. Vincent's Medical Center, Riverside General, Metropolitan Hospital, and County Medical Center have all reached capacity and are no longer accepting new patients except for critical emergencies. The National Guard has been activated and is setting up field hospitals in 3 locations across the city. The City Department of Health has confirmed that all cases can be traced back either directly or indirectly to the Riverside construction site incident yesterday. The sealed chamber that was opened contained biological material from a failed Cold War-era experiment. Initial hazmat assessment yesterday failed to detect active contamination, but follow-up testing this morning has confirmed the presence of a previously unknown viral organism. The virus appears to be airborne and highly contagious. Transmission occurs through respiratory droplets and possibly through contact with contaminated surfaces. The incubation period appears to be extremely short, between 4 and 8 hours from exposure to symptom onset. Symptoms include difficulty breathing, severe chest pain, high fever, and in advanced cases, loss of consciousness and respiratory failure. There is currently no known treatment, and medical facilities are providing supportive care only. The mayor is expected to address the city within the hour. We'll bring you that live when it happens. That's the 9 a.m. news, and I know it's terrifying. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But let's focus on what we can control. Emily's pulling up the official guidance from the health department now. Here's what they're saying. All residents should shelter in place if possible. Avoid unnecessary travel. Schools are being closed. Public transportation is being suspended as of 10 a.m. Major highways out of the city are being restricted to emergency vehicles only. They're not calling it a quarantine yet, but that's what it is. If you're at work, stay there unless you can safely get home. If you're at home, stay there. If you're somewhere in between, find shelter and stay put. Do not try to leave the city. The virus is already spreading faster than we can track. Running will only take it with you to new population. I'm looking out the window now and I can see the traffic patterns changing. People are leaving work early, trying to get home before the restrictions kick in. The highways are jammed. This is exactly what we didn't want to happen. Thousands of people packed into confined spaces, possibly exposing each other, definitely making it harder for emergency services to move. Emily's monitoring police scanners and she's hearing reports of accidents, breakdowns, people running out of gas on the highways. It's gridlock out there. If you're in your car right now, I don't know what to tell you. Stay calm, inch forward, get home if you can, but don't panic. Accidents will only make it worse. We're getting calls from people trapped in various parts of the city. Someone at the airport, someone at a shopping mall, someone at a school waiting for their kids. Emily's trying to give them guidance, but there's only so much we can do from up here in the studio. We're not emergency services. We're just a radio station. But right now, we might be the most reliable source of information people have, so we'll do our best. It's 9:15. Let me tell you what I know about the virus itself based on what Emily's been able to piece together from medical sources. This is not a natural virus. It's something that was created presumably during the Cold War as part of some kind of biological weapons research. The fact that it was sealed in a concrete chamber suggests they knew it was dangerous. The fact that it remained viable after 60 years sealed underground is terrifying. Most viruses don't survive that long outside a host, but this one did. That suggests it's incredibly resilient, maybe even engineered to be that way. The respiratory symptoms suggest it attacks the lungs primarily: difficulty breathing, chest pain. These are signs that the lungs are being damaged, possibly flooded with fluid. In medical terms, that's acute respiratory distress syndrome. It's what kills people in severe flu cases, in pneumonia, in COVID. Your lungs fill up and you drown on dry land. The short incubation period is what makes this so dangerous. With most diseases, you have days or weeks before symptoms appear, and during that time you might not know you're sick. But with this, you know within hours. That sounds like it would make containment easier, but it actually makes it worse, because the virus spreads so fast that containment becomes impossible. By the time we identified the first cases this morning, hundreds of people were already exposed. By the time we understood what we were dealing with, thousands were exposed. Now at 9:15 a.m., who knows how many people are carrying this thing? Emily's showing me epidemiological models now, projections based on the current spread rate. If it continues doubling every 3 hours and we don't have any way to stop it, the entire city population could be infected within 72 hours. 3 days. That's all it would take for 7 million people to be exposed. And what's the mortality rate? We don't know yet. It's too early. The first patients are just now reaching the critical phase, the point where their lungs either recover or fail. We'll know more in the next few hours, but given that hospitals are already overwhelmed, given that we have no treatment, I'm not optimistic. I'm trying to think about what this really means. I'm trying to wrap my head around the possibility that the city I've lived in for 23 years, the city I've broadcast from for 17 years, might be dying, that the people listening to me right now might not make it through the week, that I might not make it through the week. It's strange what goes through your mind in moments like this. I'm thinking about my apartment, about whether I left the stove on this morning. I'm thinking about my ex-wife, wondering if she's okay, if she's even in the city anymore. We divorced 8 years ago, haven't spoken in 3, but I still think about her when things get scary. I'm thinking about my nephew, Jake, who's 14 and lives across the state. At least he's safe, probably. Unless this thing spreads beyond the city. Unless it's already spreading. Emily's trying to get updated numbers from the hospitals, but they're not responding to media inquiries anymore. They're too busy trying to save lives. So we're relying on secondhand information on social media posts, on scanner traffic. Not ideal, but it's what we have. She's telling me now that there are reports of people collapsing in the streets, just walking along, then suddenly down, unconscious, not breathing. Bystanders trying to help, but not knowing what to do. Ambulances can't get to them because they're all committed to other calls. So people are dying on sidewalks, in cars, in their homes, and there's nothing anyone can do. This is the nightmare scenario. This is what we prepare for in theory, but never think will actually happen. A disease that moves too fast for our systems to handle, that overwhelms our medical capacity, that turns a functioning city into a disaster zone in less than 24 hours. It's 9:30. The mayor is supposed to speak soon. Let's see what she has to say. Let's see if the government has any kind of plan for this, or if they're as lost as the rest of us. Emily's got the feed ready. Here we go. The mayor is on now. Emily's got the audio feed, and she's giving me the highlights. Mayor Susan Bradford is declaring a state of emergency. All businesses except essential services are ordered closed. A citywide curfew is in effect starting at noon today. All residents must remain in their homes. The National Guard is deployed to enforce the curfew and maintain order. Federal assistance has been requested. The CDC is sending teams. FEMA is mobilizing resources. She's trying to sound calm, trying to sound like she has everything under control. But I can hear it in her voice, even through Emily's relay. She's scared. The person in charge of this city is scared, and that should tell you everything you need to know about how bad this is. The mayor is saying that people should not attempt to leave the city, that roadblocks are being established on all major routes, that anyone trying to leave will be turned back, quarantined if necessary. She's saying this is for the protection of the broader population to prevent the virus from spreading to other communities. So we're locked in. 7 million people locked in a city with a virus that could kill us all. That's what it comes down to. She's talking about medical resources now, about how they're converting convention centers and sports arenas into medical facilities, about how they're bringing in doctors and nurses from surrounding areas, about how they're working on identifying the virus and developing a treatment. All good things, all necessary things, but I'm not sure any of it will be fast enough. The virus doesn't care about our preparations. The virus doesn't wait for us to set up field hospitals or fly in specialists. The virus just spreads exponentially, relentlessly, and we're behind it. We've been behind it since the moment that chamber was opened yesterday afternoon. The mayor is finishing up now. She's asking people to stay strong, to look out for each other, to follow official guidance. She's saying we'll get through this together. I want to believe her, I really do. But I've seen the numbers, I've heard the reports, I know what's coming. It's 9:45. Emily and I are sitting here in the studio, and we're both processing what we just heard. The city is under quarantine. The city is locked down. This is really happening. Let me tell you about this studio, about where we are right now. 6th floor of a commercial building downtown, maybe 8 blocks from the Riverside construction site. We've got a good view of the city from here, can see the downtown core, can see the highways, can see all the way to the river on a clear day like today. The building has maybe a dozen other businesses in it. Law office, accounting firm, insurance company, that kind of thing. Most of them are probably empty now. People having left when the mayor announced the lockdown was coming. But Emily and I are still here. We're not leaving. This is where we need to be. We've got supplies here, some food in the break room, water, coffee. We've got backup generators in case power fails. We've got equipment that can run for days if we needed to. This is a broadcast facility built to handle emergencies, built to keep operating when other systems fail. I never thought we'd actually need that capability, but here we are. Emily's checking in with her family. Her parents live in the suburbs, outside the quarantine zone, probably safe. Her boyfriend is across town, says he's okay so far, holding up in his apartment. She's trying to stay professional, trying to keep working, but I can see she's worried. We all are. I'm going to be straight with you about something. I don't know how long we can keep broadcasting. I don't know if the power will stay on, if the equipment will keep working, if Emily and I will stay healthy enough to do this. But as long as we can, we will. As long as there's someone out there listening, we'll be here talking. That's the job. That's what we signed up for. It's 10 o'clock now. Let me give you another news update, and then we'll figure out what comes next. 10 a.m. news update. The situation continues to deteriorate across the city. Confirmed cases of the virus now exceed 1,000, though the actual number is likely much higher as many people are unable to reach medical facilities. Hospitals have suspended new admissions entirely and are focusing on treating the patients they already have. The National Guard has established checkpoints at all major intersections and highway exits. No one is being allowed to leave the city limits. Several incidents of people attempting to bypass checkpoints have been reported. Please do not attempt this. It endangers yourselves and the soldiers who are just doing their job. Public transportation has been completely shut down. Buses, trains, everything stopped at 10 a.m. as announced. If you're stranded somewhere, find shelter and stay put. Moving around the city only increases your risk of exposure. The CDC team has arrived and is working with city health officials to analyze the virus. No timeline yet on when we might have treatment options or a vaccine. Given the nature of the virus and how quickly it's spreading, I'm not optimistic about quick solutions. Power and water services remain operational. Internet and cell networks are strained but functioning. Please limit non-essential communications to keep networks available for emergency services. That's your 10 a.m. update. Now let me talk to you about what we're actually dealing with here, because I think it's important to be completely honest. This virus, whatever it is, was created by human beings. It was made in a lab probably in the 1960s, probably as some kind of weapon. The fact that it was sealed away suggests that even the people who created it knew it was too dangerous to use. And now, because of bad luck or carelessness or just the passage of time, it's out. Think about that. We did this to ourselves. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but through the accumulated mistakes and oversights of decades. Someone created this thing, someone sealed it underground, someone forgot about it or failed to properly document it, someone built a new construction project without adequately researching what was below ground, someone opened that chamber without taking proper precautions, and now we're all paying the price. This is the human story, isn't it? We create threats and then we forget about them until they come back to kill us. Nuclear waste that will be dangerous for 10,000 years, sealed in containers we hope will last but probably won't. Chemical weapons buried in the ocean, corroding slowly, waiting to leak. Biological experiments locked away in freezers that depend on continuous power and maintenance. We build these time bombs and we walk away and we hope future generations will deal with them. But sometimes they go off in our own lifetime. Emily's looking at me. She thinks I'm getting too dark, too philosophical. Maybe she's right. But what else is there to do? We're sitting here watching a city die. We're watching the consequences of decisions made before we were born. Someone has to talk about it. Someone has to acknowledge what's happening and why. It's 10:15. We're getting reports now of looting starting in some areas. People breaking into stores, taking food, water, medical supplies. I can't say I blame them. If you think you might die in a few days, law and property rights probably don't seem very important. But it's still disturbing to watch. It's still a sign that social order is breezed down faster than I expected. The police are trying to respond, but they're stretched thin. They're dealing with medical emergencies, traffic accidents, people trying to flee the city, and now looting on top of everything else. The National Guard is supposed to help maintain order, but there's only so many of them and so much city to cover. Emily's monitoring social media, and she's seeing posts from people saying goodbye to their families, posting what they think might be their last messages. It's heartbreaking. People in their 20s and 30s with whole lives ahead of them saying goodbye. Parents telling their children they love them. Spouses separated by the quarantine, unable to reach each other, sending final messages over the internet. This is what disaster looks like in the modern age. It's not just physical, it's digital. People dying alone, their last words sent as text messages or social media posts. Is that better or worse than dying alone in the past with no way to communicate at all? I don't know. Both seem terrible to me. I'm thinking about my own mortality now. I'm 52 years old. I'm in decent health, or I was yesterday. No underlying conditions that I know of. But that doesn't mean much with this virus. It seems to hit everyone equally, young and old, healthy and sick. There's no pattern to who survives and who doesn't, at least not that we've identified yet. If I get sick, will I keep broadcasting? I don't know. Depends on how sick I get, how fast. If I can still talk, I probably will. What else would I do? Lie down and wait to die? That's not who I am. I'd rather go out talking, trying to help, trying to connect people. That's worth something, isn't it? Emily's telling me she's starting to feel a headache. That's concerning. Headache isn't one of the main symptoms we've heard about, but everyone's body responds differently to illness. It could be nothing. Could be stress, tension, lack of sleep. She's been working non-stop since 6 a.m. Or it could be the beginning of something worse. I'm asking her how she's feeling otherwise. She says fine, just the headache, probably just needs water and caffeine. She's going to take some ibuprofen and keep working. What else can she do? We can't stop now. People are depending on us. It's 10:30. Let me tell you what I know about isolation, about being cut off. When you work in radio, you get used to talking to people you can't see. You imagine them out there, in their cars, in their kitchens, at their workplaces, listening. You build this relationship with voices on the phone, with text messages, with the abstract concept of an audience. It's intimate and distant at the same time. But now that distance feels different. Now I'm talking to people I might never meet, who might be dying while they listen. I'm talking to an audience that's shrinking by the hour. How many people are still listening? How many are too sick to care about the radio? How many are dead? These are horrible thoughts, but they're real. They're what's happening. And someone has to think them, someone has to acknowledge them, or else what are we even doing here? Emily's got an update from the hospitals. The mortality rate is starting to come into focus. Of the patients admitted in the first wave, the ones who got sick earliest this morning, about 40% have died. 40%. That's not a disease, that's a death sentence. Those odds are terrible. And that's just the people who made it to hospitals and got treatment. What about everyone who couldn't get to a hospital, who died at home or in the streets? What about the people who are sick right now but don't know it yet? How many of them will make it? If 40% of the city dies, that's almost 3 million people. 3 million deaths in a matter of days. That's not a disaster. That's an apocalypse. That's the end of the world as we know it, at least for this city. I need to stop thinking about the numbers. The numbers are too big. They stop meaning anything when they get that large. 3 million people might as well be 3 billion or 3. It's beyond my capacity to comprehend. Let me focus on the individual instead. Let me think about Marcus, the construction worker who called in this morning. Did he make it to the hospital? Is he getting treatment? Is he one of the 40% who dies or the 60% who lives? I don't know. We haven't heard back from him. Emily tried calling the number he called from earlier, but there's no answer. That's what this comes down to. Individual stories. Individual lives. Each person listening to me right now is a complete universe of experiences, memories, relationships, hopes, fears. And the virus doesn't care about any of that. The virus just spreads and kills mechanically, efficiently, without malice or purpose. It just does what it was designed to do. It's 10:45. We're coming up on 5 hours since I started this broadcast this morning. 5 hours that feel like 5 days. Everything's changed. The whole world has changed. This morning we were worried about traffic and weather. Now we're worried about survival. Emily's headache is getting worse. She's trying not to show it, but I can tell. She's squinting at her screens, rubbing her temples. I'm asking her if she wants to lie down, take a break, but she's refusing. Says she needs to keep working. Says people need information. She's right, but I'm worried about her. She's 28 years old. She's got her whole life ahead of her, or she did, until this morning. Now who knows? None of us know what's ahead. We're all just trying to make it through the next hour. Let me give you some practical information, something useful. If you're sheltering at home right now, here's what you should do. Make sure you have water, at least a gallon per person per day. Food that doesn't need cooking in case power fails. A first aid kit, though I'm not sure what good that'll do against a virus. A radio, battery powered so you can keep getting information even if the power goes out. Seal your doors and windows if you can. Use tape, towels, whatever you have. The virus is airborne, so reducing air exchange with the outside might help, might not, but it's worth trying. If you live with other people, designate one room as a sick room just in case someone gets ill. Keep them isolated as much as possible. It probably won't matter, you've all been exposed if one of you is sick, but again, worth trying. And stay connected. Call your family, text your friends, check in with your neighbors. We're all going through this together. Isolation is going to be one of the hardest parts, the loneliness, the fear. Don't let it consume you. Reach out, talk to people. Even if it's just listening to me ramble on the radio, stay connected to the world. It's 11 o'clock, time for another news update, and then I think Emily needs to take a break whether she wants to or not. 11 a.m. news update. Confirmed cases of the virus now exceed 3,000. Hospital death tolls continue to rise. Medical facilities are operating far beyond capacity with patients in hallways, parking lots, and any available space. Supplies of oxygen, ventilators, and basic medical equipment are running critically low. The National Guard presence has increased significantly across the city. Additional units from neighboring states have been deployed to help maintain the quarantine perimeter and assist with law enforcement. The military is also setting up decontamination zones and processing centers for testing and triage. Power and water remain operational, but the city utilities department is asking residents to minimize usage where possible to preserve resources. Cell networks are experiencing intermittent outages due to overwhelming traffic. Text messages are more reliable than calls at this time. The CDC has preliminary findings on the virus. It appears to be a modified strain of an influenza virus, enhanced with characteristics that increase transmissibility and virulence. It attacks the respiratory system rapidly, causing severe inflammation and fluid buildup in the lungs. There is currently no antiviral treatment that has shown effectiveness. The virus has an estimated R0 value, that's the reproduction number, of approximately 15, meaning each infected person spreads it to an average of 15 others. For context, measles has an R0 of about 12 to 18, and that's one of the most contagious diseases we know. Weather continues clear, temperature now 61 degrees. Air quality is listed as good, which is somewhat ironic given that the air contains a deadly virus. That's your 11 a.m. update. Emily, you need to take a break. Now. I'm not asking. She's protesting, but I'm insisting. She's going to the break room, gonna lie down for 30 minutes. She's been running on adrenaline and caffeine for 5 hours, and if her headache is what I think it might be, she needs to rest. So it's just me now. Daniel Rothman alone in the studio, talking to whoever's still listening out there. This is strange. I usually have Emily here, organizing things, keeping me on track, finding information. Now it's just me and the microphone and the city falling apart outside the window. Let me tell you what I'm seeing. From the 6th floor, I've got a good view of downtown. The streets are mostly empty now, a few cars still moving, but not many. I can see smoke rising from somewhere to the east, probably a fire, probably no one able to respond to it. I can see a helicopter circling in the distance, military probably, or maybe news media. I can see the buildings, tall glass and steel structures that look so permanent, so solid, but they're really just shells full of people. And how many of those people are still alive? There's something apocalyptic about an empty city. We build these massive structures, these monuments to human civilization, and then when the people are gone, they're just empty boxes. No meaning, no purpose. The city isn't the buildings, it's the people. And the people are dying. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm scared. I've been holding it together, trying to be professional, trying to give you information and keep you calm, but I'm terrified. I don't want to die. I don't want Emily to die. I don't want any of you to die, but I don't see how we avoid it. This virus is too fast, too contagious, too deadly. We don't have the medical capacity to treat everyone. We don't have the resources to contain it. We don't have the time to develop a cure. All we can do is survive as long as possible and hope that someone somewhere figures out how to stop this thing. It's 11:15. Emily's been gone for 15 minutes. I should check on her, but I don't want to leave the broadcast. What if something important happens and I'm not here to report it? What if people need information and there's just dead air? I'm being irrational. 15 minutes won't matter, but it feels like it matters. It feels like letting go of the microphone, even for a moment, would be admitting defeat. Let me tell you about the first time I sat in this chair 17 years ago. I was 35, just got hired at the station, nervous as hell. I'd done radio before, small market stuff, but this was the big time. Major city, established station, real audience. I remember thinking I had to sound perfect, had to get every word right, had to be exactly what I thought a professional broadcaster should be. My producer then, guy named Tom, he told me to relax. He said people don't want perfect, they want real. They want someone who sounds like a human being, like someone they could talk to. So I tried that. I tried just being myself, and it worked. People responded to it. I built an audience, built a career, built a life around sitting in this chair and talking into this microphone. And now here I am, 17 years later, still in the chair, still talking, but to an audience that's disappearing by the hour. Is this what I worked for? Is this what it all leads to? Broadcasting the end of the world? I'm getting morbid again. I need to snap out of it. People need information, not my existential crisis. Let me check the news feed, see what's happening in the world outside our quarantine zone. Emily usually does this, but I can manage. Okay, so the national news is covering this extensively. We're the lead story on every network. The president is expected to make a statement this afternoon. Other cities are on high alert looking for any signs of the virus spreading beyond our quarantine zone. Neighboring states have closed their borders with our state. Air traffic has been suspended at all airports within 200 miles. So we're not just quarantined at the city level, we're quarantined at the regional level. They're containing us the way you'd contain a toxic spill or a nuclear accident. Seal it off, don't let it spread, deal with the mess inside as best you can. I wonder what they'll do if the quarantine fails, if the virus gets out despite all their precautions. Do they have a plan for that? Do they widen the quarantine zone, state by state, until half the country is sealed off? Do they just let it spread and hope for the best? I don't know. I'm glad I'm not the one making those decisions. It's 11:30. I need to check on Emily. I'm going to step away from the microphone for just a minute. I'll put on some music, something calm, and I'll be right back. I'm back. Emily's not doing well. She's lying on the couch in the break room, and she's got all the symptoms: fever, difficulty breathing, chest pain. She's trying to tell me she's fine, that it's just a cold or the flu, but we both know what it is. She's got the virus. I don't know what to do. I can't get her to a hospital. They're not accepting anyone. I can't help her breathe easier. I can't cure her. All I can do is make her comfortable and hope she's in the 60% who survive. She's asking me to keep broadcasting. She says people need to hear what's happening, need to stay informed. I'm telling her not to worry about that, to just rest. But she's insistent. Even now, even sick, she's thinking about the job. That's who Emily is. That's who all the good ones are. They care more about the work than themselves. They care about serving the audience, about getting the truth out, about doing something meaningful. I hired her 6 years ago because I saw that in her, that dedication, that integrity. And now she's dying because of it, because she came to work today instead of staying home safe. No, that's not fair. She would have gotten sick anyway, probably. Everyone's getting sick, but still, I feel responsible. I'm her boss. I should have sent her home hours ago when she first mentioned the headache. I'm back in the studio now. Emily's resting, or trying to. I've got water and ibuprofen next to her, though I don't know if it'll help. I feel helpless. Completely helpless. It's 11:45. Let me give you an update on what's happening across the city. Try to focus on something other than my own fear and grief. Reports are coming in of widespread power outages in the northern districts. Unclear if this is due to the virus affecting utility workers or if there's some other technical issue. The City Power Authority is not responding to inquiries. Fires are burning in multiple locations across the city with limited firefighting response. Most fire stations are operating with skeleton crews, many firefighters having called in sick or simply not reported for duty. The ones who are working are prioritizing fires that threaten critical infrastructure or large residential areas. The police department has pulled back to defending essential facilities and maintaining the quarantine perimeter. They are no longer responding to most calls for service. The police chief issued a statement saying citizens should shelter in place and defend themselves if necessary. It's essentially an admission that law enforcement has collapsed. Food distribution centers are being set up by the National Guard at several locations across the city. Residents are being told to come during designated time slots based on their neighborhood to avoid crowding. Bring ID and come prepared to carry supplies home. Do not attempt to take more than your allocated share. The death toll from the virus is now estimated at over 1,000, but that's almost certainly a significant undercount. Many people are dying at home, unreported. The real number could be several times higher. Social media is filling with posts from people saying goodbye, sharing final thoughts, trying to leave something behind. It's devastating to read. It's like watching the collective consciousness of a city slowly wink out. It's noon now. The curfew has officially started. Anyone on the streets without authorization can be detained or worse by National Guard patrols. Stay inside, stay safe, or as safe as you can be. I'm looking at Emily's chair, usually filled with her presence, her energy, her competence. Now it's empty. She's in the other room fighting for her life, and I'm out here, still talking, because that's all I know how to do. Let me tell you something about broadcasting. It's a strange profession. You talk to thousands or millions of people, but you do it alone. You sit in a small room with soundproofing and equipment, and you speak into a microphone and your voice goes out into the world, but you never really know who's listening. You never really know if anyone cares, except in moments like this. In moments of crisis, you know people are listening, you know they're depending on you, you know your voice might be the only thing connecting them to the world beyond their four walls. And that's a huge responsibility, but it's also a gift. It means what you're doing matters. It means you're not alone, even though you're sitting alone in a room. I've been doing this for 17 years, and I've never felt the weight of it like I do right now. Every word I say could be someone's last source of information. Every piece of advice I give could mean the difference between life and death. And I'm not qualified for this. I'm not a doctor or a scientist or an emergency coordinator. I'm just a guy who reads news and plays music. But here I am, here we are. And I'll keep doing this as long as I can. It's 12:15. I need to check on Emily again. Music first, then I'll go see how she's doing. She's worse. Her breathing is labored, raspy. Her fever is high. I can feel the heat coming off her skin. She's conscious, but not really coherent, mumbling about work, about things that need to get done. I'm trying to keep her calm, keep her hydrated, but I feel so useless. This is how it happens, isn't it? Someone you know, someone you work with every day. Someone young and healthy and full of life, and then suddenly they're dying in front of you. And there's nothing you can do. No hospital to take them to. No treatment to give them. No hope to offer. Just watch them deteriorate and hope they're strong enough to fight it off. I don't want to lose Emily. She's been with me for 6 years. She's more than just a producer. She's a friend. She keeps me grounded, keeps me honest, keeps me from taking myself too seriously. I need her. The broadcast needs her. The world needs people like her. But the virus doesn't care what we need. I'm back in the studio. It's 12:30. Let me try to pull myself together and give you some information. The CDC has issued a preliminary assessment of the virus's origin, confirmed it was created as part of a Cold War-era bioweapon program. The program was supposedly shut down in the early 1970s, but clearly some materials were improperly stored or forgotten. The specific lab that created it was apparently located somewhere in the Midwest, but the virus was distributed to multiple sites for testing and storage. Our city just had the bad luck of being one of those sites. The virus was designed to be highly contagious and to incapacitate enemy populations quickly. It was never meant to be used, just developed as a deterrent or a last resort option. But like all weapons, it had a life beyond its intended purpose, sealed away for 60 years waiting for someone to accidentally let it out. The irony is that the people who created this thing are probably long dead. The scientists, the military officials, the politicians who authorized the program, they're gone, but their creation lives on. That's humanity for you. We build things that outlast us, for good or ill. Cathedrals and bombs, libraries and viruses. Reports coming in now of civil unrest in several neighborhoods. People angry about the quarantine, about the lack of medical care, about the government's response or lack thereof. Groups gathering despite the curfew, confronting National Guard units, demanding to be let out of the city. It's not going to end well. The soldiers have their orders. The perimeter will hold one way or another. I understand the anger, though. People feel trapped, helpless, abandoned. They're watching their families die and being told there's nothing they can do except stay inside and wait. That's an impossible thing to ask of people. Some will comply, but others will lash out, will try to take action even if it's futile. Human nature. It's 12:45. I'm monitoring multiple news sources, And the picture is consistent across all of them. This is a catastrophic event. This is the worst public health emergency in modern history, at least for this city. Other cities have had their disasters, their plagues, their emergence, but this is ours. This is our plague. I'm thinking about medieval times, about when the Black Death swept through Europe. They didn't understand what was happening. They didn't have microscopes or germ theory or any of the tools we take for granted. They just saw people dying and had no way to stop it. So they turned to religion, to superstition, to blame. They persecuted minorities. They flagellated themselves. They prayed to saints and burned incense and did all sorts of things that didn't help. We're not that different, really. We have science, yes, but science can't help us if there's no time to develop a cure, no way to treat the sick, no capacity in our medical system. We have technology, but technology can't outpace a virus that spreads this fast. We have information, but information doesn't save lives when there's no action you can take to protect yourself. So what do we have that they didn't? Maybe just awareness. We know we're facing a virus. We know how it spreads. We know it's not divine punishment or miasma or witchcraft. That's something, I suppose, that doesn't make us less likely to die, but at least we die understanding what's killing us. Small comfort. It's 1 o'clock. Let me give you the 1 p.m. news update, and then I need to check on Emily again. 1 p.m. news update. The situation continues to worsen across all metrics. Estimated infections now exceed 10,000. Deaths estimated at over 2,000, though accurate counting has become impossible. Hospitals have essentially ceased functioning as organized medical facilities and are operating more as hospice centers, providing comfort care only. Power outages have spread to the western and central districts. The electrical grid is failing in sections as maintenance workers fail to report for duty and automated systems malfunction. The city utilities department says they're working to restore power but cannot provide a timeline. Water service remains operational in most areas, but residents are advised to boil water before drinking as a precaution. Water treatment plants are operating at minimum staffing levels and water quality cannot be guaranteed. The National Guard has established secure zones around critical infrastructure, including power plants, water facilities, and food distribution centers. Access to these areas is restricted to authorized personnel only. The federal government is setting up a complete perimeter around a 50-mile radius of the city center. Air Force assets are being deployed to enforce a no-fly zone. Naval ships are positioning off the coast to provide support and enforce maritime quarantine. This is a full military containment operation now. Reports of violence and looting have increased. The National Guard has been authorized to use lethal force if necessary to maintain order. Several incidents of gunfire have been reported. Residents are urged to remain indoors and away from windows. Weather remains clear, temperature 64 degrees, wind from the west at 8 miles per hour. It's a beautiful day if you ignore everything else. That's your 1 p.m. update. I need to check on Emily. She's still hanging on, still breathing, still conscious when I talk to her, but she's not getting better. If anything, she's declining. Her breathing sounds worse, more strained. She's coughing up blood. That's not a good sign. That means the virus has progressed to the severe stage. Means her lungs are filling with fluid. I'm sitting with her for a minute, holding her hand. She's trying to smile, trying to be brave. She's asking about the broadcast, asking if I'm keeping it going. I tell her, yes, I'm keeping it going. I tell her she trained me well. I can manage without her for a while. I tell her to just focus on resting, on breathing, on surviving. She squeezes my hand. That's all she has, the strength for. A single squeeze to let me know she hears me, she understands. I don't want to leave her, but I have to get back to the broadcast. People are listening. People need information. That's what Emily would want. That's what she'd tell me to do. So, I'm back in the studio. It's 1:15. Daniel Rothman on 104.7 FM, still broadcasting, still here. Let me talk to you about hope, since that seems to be in short supply right now. Is there any reason to think this gets better instead of worse? The CDC is working on understanding the virus. That's something, if they can map its structure, maybe they can find a weakness. Maybe they can develop a treatment or a vaccine. But that takes time, weeks or months. And we don't have weeks or months. We have days at best. The 60% survival rate means most people who get sick will live. That's something too. It means the virus won't kill everyone. It means there will be survivors, people who can rebuild, who can carry on, assuming the survivors are immune, assuming they don't get reinfected, there will be a population left when this is over. But what kind of world will they inherit? A city full of corpses and collapsed systems. A population traumatized by watching millions die? An economy destroyed, infrastructure failing, trust in institutions shattered? What do you build from that? Maybe I'm thinking too far ahead. Maybe the only hope is getting through today, then tomorrow, then the next day. One day at a time. 1 hour at a time. Just survive the next hour and then the hour after that, and eventually you'll have survived the whole thing. That's a grim kind of hope, but it's what we have. It's 1:30. I'm getting reports that the food distribution centers are being overwhelmed. Thousands of people showing up, more than the National Guard can safely manage. They're trying to maintain order, but it's breaking down. People are desperate, afraid they won't get enough food, afraid they'll starve if they can't get supplies now. This is the beginning of societal collapse, isn't it? When people can't trust that basic needs will be met, when the distribution systems break down, when it becomes every person for themselves. We're maybe 12 hours into this crisis and we're already seeing it happen. I'm thinking about supply chains, about how fragile they are. Food in this city comes from hundreds or thousands of miles away. It comes on trucks, driven by people who are probably sick or dead or refusing to work. It's stored in warehouses managed by computer systems that need power and maintenance. It's distributed through stores and centers that need staff to operate. Every piece of that chain is breaking right now. And when the food runs out, what happens? People starve or they fight for what's left. Neither option is good. The same is true for water, for power, for medicine, for every other essential resource. We built a civilization based on complex interconnected systems, and those systems are failing all at once. It turns out civilization is a lot more fragile than we like to think. It's 1:45. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep broadcasting as long as I possibly can. As long as the power stays on, as long as the equipment works, as long as I'm healthy enough to sit in this chair and talk, I'll be here. I don't know how much good it does. I don't know if anyone's even listening anymore. Maybe everyone who had a radio is dead or dying. Maybe the only people left are too sick to care. But I'm going to keep talking anyway because it's what I know how to do, and because maybe somewhere out there someone needs to hear a human voice. That's all any of us can do, right? Keep doing what we know how to do. Keep trying to help. Keep connecting with other people. Keep being human even when humanity is falling apart all around us. Emily's calling for me. I need to go to her. Be right back. I'm back. It's 2 o'clock. Emily's gone. She died while I was sitting with her. One moment she was breathing, struggling but breathing, and then she just stopped. No dramatic final words, no profound last moment, just a gradual cessation. Breathing became shallow, became intermittent, became nothing. I sat there holding her hand for I don't know how long, waiting for another breath that didn't come, waiting for her to open her eyes and tell me she was okay, waiting for something, anything other than the silence and stillness. Emily was 28 years old. She had a whole life ahead of her. She had plans, dreams, people who loved her. And now she's gone, another victim of a virus that escaped from a forgotten Cold War bunker. I need to keep it together. I need to keep broadcasting. That's what she would want. That's what she told me to do. But right now, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have the strength. Her body is still in the break room. I don't know what to do with it. I can't exactly call for a pickup. The morgues are overflowing. Emergency services aren't responding. So she's just there, and I'm here, and I have to somehow keep doing this job. I'm sorry, I'm not being very professional right now. But my friend just died in front of me, and I'm struggling to process that. Let me try to give you some news. Let me try to do what Emily would want me to do. 2 p.m. update. The estimated infection count has exceeded 20,000. Deaths now estimated at over 5,000 and climbing rapidly. The exponential growth curve is exactly as predicted. At this rate, the entire city population will be infected within 36 hours. Power outages have spread to cover roughly half the city. Some areas are on backup generators, others are completely dark. The electrical grid is in cascading failure, and full restoration may not be possible without significant outside intervention. Water service has failed in the northern districts. Residents there are being told to use bottled water only and to boil any water from other sources. The water treatment system is failing due to power loss and lack of operational staff. Cell networks are experiencing widespread failures. Text messaging may still work intermittently, but voice calls are largely impossible. Internet service is spotty at best. We may be one of the few information sources still operating reliably. The National Guard has pulled back from trying to maintain order in most neighborhoods and is focusing solely on protecting critical infrastructure and the quarantine perimeter. Lawlessness is spreading in areas without military presence. The federal government is preparing for the possibility that the quarantine will fail. Plans are being made for wider containment zones and potential military responses up to and including extreme measures. I don't want to speculate about what that means, but it's deeply concerning. That's your 2 p.m. update. Such as it is, the city is dying. That's the truth of it. The systems are failing, the people are dying, and there's no realistic way to stop it. I'm alone now. Emily's gone. I'm sitting in this studio by myself talking into a microphone, hoping someone out there can still hear me. Is anyone listening? Can anyone hear me? If you can, I want you to know you're not alone. I'm here. I'm still here. As long as I can be, I'll be here. It's 2:30. I don't have a producer anymore to line up music or screen calls or find information. It's just me, so I'm doing my best. Please bear with me if I'm not as smooth or professional as usual. I'm operating on adrenaline and grief and coffee, and I'm doing this alone for the first time in 6 years. Let me talk about Emily for a minute. I want to honor her memory. I want people to know who she was. She was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. She could process information faster than anyone I've ever met. She could monitor 5 different sources at once and pull out the important details. She could fact-check in real time, organize complex topics into coherent narratives, anticipate what information would be needed before I even asked for it. But more than that, she cared. She genuinely cared about doing good work, about serving the audience, about getting things right. She could have worked anywhere, could have taken easier jobs or better paying jobs, but she stayed here because she believed in what we were doing. She believed that local radio mattered, that giving people reliable information mattered, that being a voice in the community mattered. She was right. It does matter. And now she's gone, and I'm trying to carry on what we built together. I miss her already. It's only been 30 minutes and I miss her. I keep expecting to hear her voice telling me about something she found, asking if I need anything, making some sarcastic comment about my taste in music, but there's just silence. I'm going to play a song now, something Emily liked, and then I'll come back and we'll keep going, because that's what she would want. That's what we do. It's 3 o'clock and I'm still here. Daniel Rothman, 104.7 FM. I'm going to try to give you a 3 p.m. news update cobbled together from what I can find. The infection rate continues to climb exponentially. Current estimates suggest over 40,000 infected, which is approaching 6% of the city's total population. Deaths now estimated at over 10,000. At this rate of progression, peak infection will occur sometime tomorrow, with deaths continuing for days afterward. The medical system is completely collapsed. Hospitals are no longer operating in any meaningful capacity. Doctors and nurses are either sick themselves or have stopped coming to work. Those who remain are providing whatever comfort care they can, but there are no treatments, no interventions, nothing that can change the trajectory once someone is infected. Critical infrastructure continues to fail. Power is now out in approximately 60% of the city. Water service has failed in large sections. Natural gas is still flowing for now, but there are concerns about pipeline safety without proper monitoring and maintenance. Food distribution has broken down almost entirely. The National Guard abandoned the distribution centers after they were overrun by desperate crowds. There is no organized system for getting food to residents anymore. People are on their own to find what they can from stores, from abandoned homes, from anywhere. The quarantine perimeter is holding but faces increasing pressure. Multiple attempts to breach the perimeter have been made, all unsuccessful. The military has been authorized to use lethal force and has done so in several instances. The message is clear: no one leaves. International response is developing. Other nations are monitoring the situation and preparing their own containment protocols in case the virus somehow spreads beyond our borders. Some countries have already suspended all travel from our entire region. We're being treated as a biohazard zone, which is accurate. Weather is changing. Clouds moving in from the west, temperature dropping. Expected low tonight in the mid-40s. Rain possible overnight. That'll make things harder for people without power or shelter. That's the 3 p.m. update. Things are bad and getting worse. I wish I had better news to report, but I'm committed to telling you the truth, however grim it is. It's 3:15. I'm looking around the studio, really looking at it for the first time in hours. It's a mess. Coffee cups everywhere. Scattered papers, Emily's bag still on her chair, evidence of the chaos this morning, the rush to keep up with the developing situation. I should clean up a bit, but what's the point? Who's going to see it? Who's going to care? I'm thinking about my apartment across town. I wonder if it's still standing, if anyone's broken in, if my cat is okay. I have a cat, Stella, 12 years old, gray tabby. I left her this morning with food and water for the day, expecting to come home tonight like always. But I'm not going home tonight. I might not ever go home again. So Stella's there alone and she'll be confused when I don't come back. Eventually she'll run out of food and water. Eventually she'll die alone in my apartment waiting for me. I'm sorry, Stella. I'm sorry I left you. I'm sorry I can't come back. These are the small tragedies that add up to the big one. Millions of small stories of loss and abandonment and loneliness, all happening simultaneously across the city. Pets left alone, children separated from parents, friends unable to reach each other. Every single person has their own version of this, their own specific grief. It's 3:30. Let me try to pull myself together. Let me try to be useful. If you're listening and you're still healthy, here's what you need to focus on. Water is your top priority. You can survive for weeks without food, but only days without water. If you have running water, fill every container you can while it's still flowing. Bathtubs, pots, bottles, anything. Boil it before drinking if possible. Food is second priority. Non-perishable items, canned goods, dried goods, anything that doesn't need refrigeration or cooking. Be smart about portions. Make it last as long as you can. Shelter third. Stay where you are unless it becomes unsafe. Moving around the city only increases your exposure risk. Find a room you can secure, preferably with a door you can lock. Make it comfortable as possible. Information fourth. Keep your radio on. Keep listening. Knowledge is power, even if it's just knowledge about how bad things are. Better to know than to guess. Community last but not least. If you're with other people, work together. Pool resources, share responsibilities, support each other. If you're alone, try to establish contact with neighbors or friends remotely. Don't isolate completely. Humans aren't meant to be alone. These are the basics of survival. I don't know if they'll be enough, but they're something. They're better than giving up. It's 4 o'clock. Time for another update. 4 p.m. news. The city is in complete collapse. All organized government services have ceased. The mayor's office is not responding. The police department has essentially disbanded, with officers either sick or having abandoned their posts. The fire department is no longer operational. City utilities are failing system-wide. The National Guard maintains control only of the quarantine perimeter and a few strategic sites. Everything else has been abandoned to chaos. There is no law, no order, no authority except what people create for themselves. Estimated infections now exceed 100,000, deaths estimated at over 25,000. The virus is burning through the population at incredible speed. At this rate, everyone in the city will be infected by tomorrow night. Power is out across 80% of the city now. Only a few isolated pockets still have electricity, mainly areas near critical infrastructure that the military is protecting. This radio station is running on backup generators that should last for another 48 hours if we're careful with power usage. Water service has failed citywide. Residents must rely on whatever they stored or can find. Rivers and streams are contaminated and unsafe to drink even if boiled. Dehydration will become a major issue for survivors in the coming days. Communications infrastructure is almost completely down. Cell networks are offline. Internet is offline. We may be the only broadcast still operating in the city. If you're hearing this, you're hearing one of the last sources of information. The federal government has established a total exclusion zone extending 100 miles from the city center. Military forces are positioned to enforce it. Aerial surveillance is continuous. Any movement in or out of the zone is subject to interdiction. This is total containment. Weather has turned. Rain beginning, temperature down to 53. Going to be a cold, wet night. That's dangerous for people without shelter or power. That's your 4 p.m. update. The end is coming fast. I'm tired. I've been broadcasting for 10 hours straight with minimal breaks. I'm running on nothing at this point, but I'll keep going. What else is there to do? It's 4:30. I'm noticing my own symptoms now. Tightness in my chest, slight difficulty taking deep breaths. Could be stress and exhaustion. Could be the virus. Probably the virus. So that's it then. Emily got sick around 10 this morning. 6 hours later, she was dead. If I'm following the same trajectory, I have until 10 tonight. 6 hours. 6 more hours to broadcast, to talk, to maintain this connection with whoever's still listening. 6 hours doesn't seem like enough time. There's so much I want to say, so much I want to explain and explore and understand. But 6 hours is what I have, so I'll use it. Let me tell you about humanity, about what we are, what we've accomplished, what we've failed to accomplish. Because if this is the end, If this virus kills most or all of us, someone should acknowledge what we were. We built incredible things. Cities like this one, monuments to human cooperation and ingenuity. We built machines that could fly, that could compute, that could heal. We created art and music and literature. We developed philosophies and religions and systems of ethics. We tried in our imperfect way to make sense of existence and to create meaning from chaos. We also destroyed. We made weapons that could end the world. We waged wars over ideology and resources and pride. We enslaved each other, oppressed each other, killed each other over differences in appearance or belief. We polluted our environment, drove species to extinction, consumed resources without thought for future generations. And now we're dying because of our own creation. A virus made in a lab by people who thought they were protecting their nation, left to rot in an underground chamber for 60 years, released by accident into a population with no immunity. It's almost poetic in its symmetry. We made the weapon that killed it, but maybe some will survive. Maybe the 60% who recover will be enough to rebuild. Maybe they'll learn from our mistakes. Maybe they'll build something better than what we had. Or maybe they'll repeat all the same errors. Maybe humanity is doomed to cycle through the same patterns of creation and destruction forever. Or until we finally create something we can't survive. I don't know. I'm not a philosopher. I'm just a radio host trying to make sense of his own impending death. It's 5 o'clock. Let me try to give you another update. 5 p.m. news. The city is dark. Most areas have no power, no light except what people can generate themselves. Fires are burning unchecked in multiple locations, providing the only illumination in many neighborhoods. The smoke is visible even from here, dark columns rising against the evening sky. The infection rate has reached crisis peak. Essentially everyone in the city has now been exposed. Some are sick, some are dying, some are already dead. The few who aren't showing symptoms yet will be within hours. This is total saturation. Death toll is impossible to calculate accurately. Estimates range from 50,000 to over 100,000. Bodies are everywhere. In homes, in streets, in buildings. There's no one to collect them, no capacity to process them. They'll just remain where they fell. The National Guard has pulled back to defensive positions around the quarantine perimeter only. They're no longer attempting any operations within the city. As far as the military is concerned, the city is a loss. They're just making sure nothing gets out. The federal government is debating next steps. Options reportedly include complete aerial sterilization of the city or sealing it permanently and letting nature take its course. Either way, the city as we knew it is over. Even if people survive, we'll never be allowed back to normal life. We're contaminated, we're pariahs, weather continuing to deteriorate. Rain steady now, temperature down to 48 degrees, wind picking up, going to be a miserable night. That's the 5 p.m. news. We're approaching endgame now. My breathing is definitely getting worse. Each breath requires conscious effort. There's pain in my chest, sharp and persistent. My fever is climbing, I can feel it. Sweating even though I'm cold. Classic symptoms, I'm infected. No question. How long do I have? Emily lasted 6 hours from first symptoms to death. It's been about 90 minutes for me, so maybe I have 4.5 hours left, maybe less. Everyone's different. 4.5 hours to say everything I want to say. To bear witness to what's happening, to maintain this connection as long as I can. It's 5:30. I'm going to tell you about my life since I probably won't get another chance. I grew up in a small town about 200 miles from here, only child. My parents were good people, worked hard, loved each other, gave me a stable childhood. They died within a year of each other about 10 years ago. Cancer for mom, heart attack for dad. I miss them, but I'm grateful they're not alive to see this. They shouldn't have to watch their son die on the radio. I wanted to be a broadcaster from the time I was 12 years old. Got my first job at a college radio station. Worked my way up through small markets, finally made it to the big time here 17 years ago. I loved this job, loved connecting with people, loved being part of the daily rhythm of the city, loved the feeling of doing something meaningful. I was married once to Sarah. We met in my 20s, married in my 30s, divorced in my 40s. It wasn't anyone's fault, really. We just grew apart, wanted different things. She remarried a few years ago, lives upstate now with her new husband. I hope she's safe. I hope she's far enough away from all this. No kids. We talked about it, Sarah and I, but we never got around to it. Too focused on careers, then too focused on our problems, then too late. I regret that sometimes. Would have liked to have kids. Would have liked to leave something of myself behind. I have friends or had friends, people I worked with, people I met through the years. We'd get together for drinks sometimes, catch up, tell stories. Most of them are probably dead now. Some might have made it out before the quarantine. I'll never know. This is my legacy. 17 years of broadcasting, thousands of shows, millions of words spoken into microphones, and now this, my final broadcast during the end of the world. Not how I imagined going out, but I suppose it's appropriate in its way. I lived my life on the radio. I'll die on the radio too. It's 6 o'clock, news update time, though I'm not sure how much news there is left to report. 6 p.m. news. The city is in its final hours. The virus has reached full saturation. Everyone is infected or will be soon. The death toll continues to climb exponentially. Best estimates suggest over 200,000 dead out of a population of 7 million, and that number will keep rising. No power anywhere except a few military installations and this radio station. Our generators are holding for now, but we're burning through fuel. We've got maybe another day of broadcast time left, even if I'm alive to use it. No water except what people stored. No food except what people scavenged. No medical care except what people can provide for themselves. No law except what people enforce personally. We've regressed to a state of nature in less than 24 hours. The quarantine perimeter is being reinforced. Additional military units are being deployed. The exclusion zone is being expanded to 200 miles. Air Force jets are flying constant patrol. This is being treated as a biological warfare scenario now, a contaminated zone that must be isolated at all costs. International response is developing into a global crisis. Other nations are demanding transparency about the virus's origins and characteristics. There are concerns it could spread despite the quarantine. Some countries are closing their borders entirely, preparing for the possibility of a pandemic. Scientists at the CDC and other facilities are working around the clock to understand the virus and develop countermeasures. But even if they succeed, it'll be too late for us. We're the sacrifice, the price paid for keeping the rest of the world safe. Weather is worsening. Heavy rain, strong winds, temperature continuing to drop. Flash flood warnings have been issued, not that anyone's in a position to respond to them. The storm will just add to the death toll. That's your 6 p.m. news. The end of the city, the end of everything we knew. I'm feeling worse. Breathing is hard. Each word requires effort. I'm coughing now, deep, painful coughs that bring up blood. I don't have much time left. Let me tell you what I'm seeing from the window. It's getting dark out earlier than usual because of the storm clouds. The rain is coming down hard, making the streets look like rivers. No lights anywhere except fires burning in the distance. The city is a dark void punctuated by points of orange flame. I can see shapes moving down on the street occasionally. People, I think, though, it's hard to tell from this height in the rain. Moving slowly, aimlessly, looking for shelter maybe, or supplies, or just wandering in shock. The Walking Dead in a very real sense. No cars moving, no planes in the sky, no helicopters, just rain and darkness and the occasional flicker of flame. It's apocalyptic in the truest sense. The end of the world as we know it. It's 6:30. I need to sit down. Standing is getting difficult. The dizziness is setting in, same as Emily experienced. The virus working its way through my system, attacking my lungs, my blood, my brain. I'm going to keep talking as long as I can, even if my words get slurred, even if I'm not making perfect sense. The broadcast must continue. That's my purpose. That's what I'm here for. Let me talk about fear, about what it feels like to know you're dying. It's strange. There's terror, yes, but also a kind of calm acceptance. I've had a good life by most measures. I've done work I'm proud of. I've had people I cared about. I've experienced beauty and love and meaning. Not everyone can say that. And now it's ending, but everything ends eventually. I'm dying maybe 60 years earlier than I hoped, but I'm dying with purpose. I'm dying doing what I love, trying to help people, trying to maintain connection and community in the face of catastrophe. There are worse ways to go. I'm not religious, never have been. I don't believe in an afterlife or divine judgment. I think when we die, we just stop. Consciousness ceases. We return to the same state we were in before we were born, which is to say no state at all. That doesn't scare me. Nothing can scare you if you don't exist to feel it. What does scare me is pain. I'm in pain now, and it's getting worse. The virus is tearing my lungs apart from the inside. Every breath is agony. I'm trying to stay calm, trying to manage it, but there's only so much a person can endure. Emily had medication in her bag, ibuprofen and acetaminophen. Not enough to truly help, but maybe enough to take the edge off. I'm taking some now. Probably won't make much difference, but it's worth trying. It's 7 o'clock. Let me try to give you another update, though I'm not sure how coherent I can be. 7 p.m. news. The city is dead or dying. The virus has won. Of 7 million people, most are dead or will be within hours. The survivors are scattered, isolated, traumatized beyond measure. Even if they physically recover, the psychological damage will be permanent. The infrastructure is gone. Power, water, communications all failed. The physical city remains, the buildings and roads, but the systems that made it a functioning metropolis are destroyed. It'll take years to rebuild, if rebuilding is even attempted. More likely, the city will just be abandoned, left as a monument to disaster. The quarantine is absolute and permanent. No one will be allowed in or out for months at minimum. Maybe never. The city is a contamination zone, a biohazard, a place where a man-made plague killed millions. Who would want to return to that? The virus is being studied intensively by scientists around the world. They're trying to ensure it doesn't escape, doesn't mutate, doesn't spread beyond the quarantine zone. So far, the containment is held, but the fear is palpable. One breach, one infected person making it past the perimeter, and this could become a global catastrophe instead of a local one. The weather continues to punish us. Heavy rain, high winds, cold temperatures. People without shelter are dying of exposure on top of everything else. The storm is washing bodies into the storm drains, into the river, creating a public health nightmare that will persist long after the virus burns out. That's the 7 p.m. news. The end is here. I'm struggling now. Each breath is a fight. The coughing is constant. Blood everywhere. I'm dizzy, disoriented. I don't think I can stand up anymore. I'm sitting in the chair, hunched over the microphone, holding on. Is anyone still listening? Can anyone hear me? If you can, please know that you're not alone. I'm here with you, dying with you, bearing witness to the end with you. We're all connected in this. Every person in this city, every person listening to my voice, we're part of the same tragedy. We're all victims of the same weapon, all casualties of the same war. A war that ended 60 years ago but killed us anyway. I want to say something meaningful, something profound, some final words that capture the enormity of what's happening, but I don't have the words. I don't think anyone does. Some things are too big for words. All I can say is this: we existed, we lived, we built a city and filled it with millions of lives, each one complete and complex and valuable. We loved and worked and dreamed and suffered and died. We were human, with all that implies good and bad. And now we're ending. But we were here. We mattered. We existed. That has to count for something. It's 7:30. I can barely see straight. The studio is swimming in and out of focus, but I'm still here, still talking, still broadcasting. Let me tell you about Emily again. She deserves to be remembered. She was smart and capable and dedicated. She cared about doing good work. She made the broadcast better every single day. She made my life better. And she died trying to help people, trying to keep the information flowing, trying to serve the audience even when she was sick. That's heroism in my book. Not the flashy kind, not the kind that gets statues or medals, just quiet dedication to duty, to helping others, to doing what needs to be done. Emily was a hero, and I hope wherever she is now, whatever comes after this, she knows that. I'm so sorry I couldn't save her. I'm sorry I couldn't save any of you. I tried. I stayed here, I kept broadcasting, I gave you information and connection and whatever comfort I could provide, but it wasn't enough. The virus was too fast, too deadly, too overwhelming. I failed you. We all failed each other, and now we pay the price. It's 8 o'clock. I need to do a news update. I don't know if I can. 8 p.m. news. Everyone's dead or dying. That's the news. That's all the news there is. I'm sorry. I'm trying to maintain professional standards to give you proper information, but I can't. I'm dying. My lungs are failing. I'm drowning in my own fluids while sitting in a dry room. The city is gone. 7 million people. Gone. Decades of growth and development investment gone. Cultural institutions, businesses, homes, families all gone. Destroyed in less than 24 hours by a virus that should never have existed. This is our legacy. This is what we leave behind. A dead city and a warning to future generations. Be careful what you create, because it might outlive you and kill you. I'm coughing up blood constantly now. I'm shaking. I'm cold even though I'm burning up. This is the end stage. This is how Emily felt right before she died. I understand now. I understand the fear and the pain and the desperate hope that maybe it'll stop, maybe you'll recover, even though you know you won't. It's 8:30. I don't know how much longer I can talk. Minutes maybe, not hours. If you're listening and you're still alive, please survive. Please make it through this. The world needs survivors. The world needs people who can bear witness, who can tell the story, who can remember what happened here and ensure it never happens again. Find each other, help each other, rebuild something better than what we had. Learn from our mistakes. Don't make the same weapons. Don't seal the same threats underground. Don't forget the same dangers. Be kind to each other. We've seen what happens when we're not. We've seen what our weapons and our negligence can do. We've paid the ultimate price for our failures. Don't repeat them. I'm losing my vision. Everything's going dark. I don't think I can continue much longer. This is Daniel Rothman on 1004.7 FM. I've been your broadcaster for 17 years. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for sharing your lives with me. I'm sorry it ends this way. I'm sorry I can't save you. I'm sorry for everything. Please remember us. Please tell our story. Please don't let us be forgotten. This is Daniel Rothman signing off for the last time. God bless you all. God help us. I love you, Emily. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry. The broadcast continues, just the sound of labored breathing for several minutes, growing weaker and more irregular. Then a final exhale. A crash as something falls and silence except for the hum of the generators. The equipment continues running, broadcasting nothing but static and ambient noise into the dead city. Rain drums against the window. Wind howls through the empty streets. Somewhere in the distance, a building collapses with a sound like thunder. The generators run through the night and into the next day, faithfully powering the transmitter, sending signal out into the void. The broadcast continues with no broadcaster, a ghost transmission from a ghost city. On the second day, the generators run out of fuel. The equipment powers down. The transmission ceases. 1004.7 FM goes silent after 17 years of continuous operation. In the days and weeks that follow, the city becomes a tomb. Bodies decompose in homes and streets. Buildings stand empty. Cars sit abandoned on highways. The rain washes blood into the sewers. The wind scatters debris through the vacant corridors of civilization. The quarantine perimeter holds. Military personnel maintain their positions, watching a dead city from a safe distance. Aerial surveillance continues, drones flying over the ruins, ensuring no movement, no life, no possibility of escape. Scientists study the virus in secure facilities far from the contamination zone. They map its structure, analyze its mechanisms, develop countermeasures and vaccines. Knowledge purchased with 7 million lives, understanding built on a foundation of corpses. Survivors exist, scattered throughout the city. The 60% who fought off the infection, immune now, alone now, traumatized beyond measure. They emerge from hiding places in the weeks after the plague burns out. They find each other gradually, carefully, forming small groups in the ruin. They bury the dead as best they can, though the task is impossible. Too many bodies, too few survivors, too little strength. They burn the bodies instead, great pyres that light up the night sky for weeks. They survive on what they can scavenge from the empty city. Food from abandoned stores and homes, water from the river boiled and filtered, shelter in buildings that still stand. They create a primitive society among the ruins, a small community of ghosts living in a graveyard. The military eventually allows humanitarian aid to reach the survivors, but only after months of quarantine and testing. Food and medicine dropped from aircraft, supplies left at designated points. No human contact, no entry into the zone, but enough support to keep the survivors alive. Years pass, the city remains quarantined. The survivors petition for release, for the right to leave and rejoin the world outside. Some are eventually allowed out after extensive decontamination and medical screening. Others choose to stay, unable to imagine life anywhere else, unable to leave their dead behind. The city becomes a monument, preserved as it was on the day of the outbreak. A warning to future generations about the dangers of biological weapons, about the fragility of civilization, about the price of human hubris. Historians study the broadcast archives, including Daniel Rothman's final transmission. His voice becomes famous, the voice of the apocalypse, the voice of witness and warning. Students listen to his final hours, analyzing his words, his tone, his desperate attempt to maintain connection and meaning in the face of catastrophe. Emily Harper's name is recorded alongside his, the producer, who died trying to serve her audience, who worked until she couldn't work anymore. Her dedication is studied in journalism schools as an example of professional commitment, though some debate whether it was dedication or futility that kept her at her post. The construction site where it all began is sealed beneath concrete and steel, entombed more thoroughly than the original chamber ever was. A memorial stands there now listing the names of the dead. 7 million names covering walls that stretch for blocks. It takes hours to walk past them all, To read even a fraction of the names of those who died in less than 48 hours, the bars and restaurants where the virus first spread are marked with plaques. Historical sites now, preserved exactly as they were. Tables still set with glasses and plates, chairs pushed back as if people just stepped away and never returned. Frozen moments from the last normal day. Scientists eventually determined that the virus was created in 1967 as part of a classified bioweapons program codenamed Project Nightfall. The goal was to develop an incapacitating agent that could disable enemy populations without destroying infrastructure. The virus was engineered to spread rapidly and cause severe but theoretically non-lethal respiratory distress. But the engineers miscalculated. The virus mutated during storage, becoming far more lethal than designed. When this was discovered during testing in 1971, the program was immediately terminated. All samples were supposed to be destroyed. Most, but some were sealed in underground chambers and forgotten, lost in the bureaucratic chaos of a massive military-industrial complex. The chamber beneath the Riverside construction site was one of several scattered across the country. Most have been located and properly secured now, after the disaster. Most, but not all. There are still gaps in the records, still sites unaccounted for, still time bombs buried underground, waiting for the wrong excavator to find them. The city's population never recovers. Too much trauma, too much death, too much association with horror. The survivors who leave never return. The few who stay are outliers, people with nowhere else to go or reasons to remain that outsiders can't understand. The population stabilizes at around 50,000, less than 1% of what it was before. The economy never recovers either. Businesses don't rebuild in a dead city. Investment doesn't flow to a place synonymous with catastrophe. The city becomes a backwater, a cautionary tale, a ghost town with a handful of inhabitants clinging to memories and monuments. But life continues in some form. The survivors build new communities among the ruins. They create art about their experiences, music and paintings and sculpture born from trauma. They write books, make films, compose symphonies. The dead city becomes a place of strange creativity, a muse born from grief. Some survivors become activists, dedicating their lives to nuclear and biological disarmament. They speak at universities, at government hearings, at international conferences. They show scars and share stories. They demand accountability and change. Some changes come, most don't. The machinery of military research grinds on, creating new threats while trying to neutralize old ones. Others retreat into silence, unable or unwilling to speak about what they experienced. They live quiet lives on the edges of society, working jobs that don't require much interaction, avoiding crowds in cities and anywhere that reminds them of that day. They jump at sudden noises. They stockpile supplies they'll never need. They dream of the dying every night. Children are born to survivors, a new generation that never knew the city as it was. They grow up among ruins, playing in empty buildings, hearing stories of the plague like fairy tales. Some find it fascinating, others horrifying. All are shaped by it, by living in the shadow of mass death, by being the children of survivors. The broadcast archives become historically significant. Every word Daniel Rothman spoke during those final hours is transcribed, analyzed, preserved. His voice becomes symbolic, a reminder of the importance of witness and communication even in hopeless circumstances. Radio journalism programs study his techniques, his choices, his gradual deterioration. Some see heroism, others see futility. Most see both. Emily Harper's family establishes a scholarship in her name for young journalists. It grows into a major award recognizing excellence in crisis reporting and dedication to public service. Recipients speak about her example, her commitment, her sacrifice. She becomes more famous in death than she ever was in life. The radio station building stands empty for years before being converted into a museum. The studio where Daniel and Emily spent their final hours is preserved exactly as it was. Visitors can see the microphone he spoke into, the chair he died in, the equipment that kept running after he stopped. Some find it moving, others find it morbid. The museum struggles with how to present tragedy as education without descending into exploitation. On the 10th anniversary of the outbreak, there's a ceremony. Survivors gather along with family members of the dead who come from across the country and around the world. The president attends, delivering remarks about remembrance and resilience. The speech is carefully crafted to honor the dead without assigning too much blame to the government that created the weapon that killed them. It satisfies no one. A minute of silence is observed at 6 a.m., the time Daniel Rothman first went on air that morning. 7 million names are read aloud over the course of days, a continuous recitation of the dead. It becomes an annual tradition. This reading of names, this insistence on remembering each individual life rather than just abstract statistics. The survivors speak at the ceremony, those willing and able. They describe what they lost, who they lost, how they've tried to rebuild. They talk about nightmares and survivor's guilt. They talk about finding meaning in tragedy, about choosing to live rather than merely surviving. They talk about the friends and family they'll never see again. Some speak with anger, demanding justice for crimes of negligence that allowed the chamber to be forgotten and then opened without proper precautions. They name names, list officials they believe bear responsibility. Lawsuits have been filed, most unsuccessful. The government shields itself behind sovereign immunity and national security classifications. Money is paid in settlements, but accountability is rare. Others speak with sadness more than anger, focusing on grief rather than blame. They memorialize the dead, sharing stories of ordinary people living ordinary lives, cut short by extraordinary disaster. They speak of birthday parties that never happened, weddings that never took place, grandchildren who were never born. The arithmetic of loss becomes overwhelming quickly. The city's exclusion zone shrinks over the years as decontamination efforts continue. Areas are declared safe and reopened, though few choose to return to them. The downtown core, including the construction site, remains sealed indefinitely. Too contaminated, too symbolic, too dangerous to disturb. It becomes a nature preserve inadvertently as plants and animals reclaim the empty streets. Wildlife flourishes in the absence of humans. Deer wander through office buildings. Birds nest in skyscrapers. Coyotes hunt in parking lots. Nature is indifferent to human tragedy, and life continues in new forms, even where human life has ended. Some survivors find this comforting, evidence that life persists. Others find it disturbing, seeing animals where people should be. The virus itself becomes extinct in the wild within months of the outbreak. It burns through its host population so quickly that it has nowhere left to go. The survivors are immune, the dead are dead, the virus dies with its victims, a fate appropriate for something that should never have existed. Samples remain in research facilities, frozen and studied, but the plague itself is over. Research continues on the virus for decades. Scientists want to understand how it worked, how it killed so efficiently, how to prevent anything like it from ever happening again. The knowledge they gain feeds into biological defense systems, into medical treatments, into pandemic preparedness protocols. The dead city becomes a laboratory in absentia, teaching lessons written in blood. International treaties are strengthened in the aftermath. Bioweapons programs are supposed to be dismantled, stockpiles destroyed, research facilities closed, inspections increase, oversight improves. But the systems are only as strong as the people operating them, and people are fallible. Secrets remain, programs continue under different names, the cycle of development and danger continues. Some nations refuse to participate in the new treaties, insisting on maintaining biological research capabilities for defensive purposes. The definitions of defensive versus offensive are debated endlessly. Research that could develop vaccines could also develop weapons. Knowledge that could save lives could also end them. The dual-use dilemma remains unsolved. The city's radio landscape changes permanently. 104.7 FM never returns to air. The frequency is left silent, a memorial bandwidth, electromagnetic emptiness where Daniel Rothman's voice once lived. Other stations fill the market, but survivors say it's not the same. They remember listening in those final hours, hearing the desperation and dedication in his voice, feeling connected to someone even as the world fell apart. Recordings of the final broadcast circulate despite efforts to restrict them. Some argue they're too disturbing for public consumption, that they traumatize listeners and exploit tragedy. Others argue they're historically important, that people need to hear what happened, that sanitizing history does a disservice to the dead. The debate never resolves, and the recordings remain available for those who seek them out. People listen for different reasons. Historians studying the timeline of events, psychologists examining reactions to catastrophic stress, radio enthusiasts analyzing broadcast technique under extreme conditions, survivors seeking connection to what they experienced, strangers trying to understand what they can never truly understand. Each listener hears something different in Daniel's words, finds different meanings in his deterioration. The most replayed moment is when he announces Emily's death. The break in his voice, the struggle to maintain composure, the raw grief bleeding through professional training. That moment becomes emblematic of the entire disaster. The personal loss multiplied by millions. The humanity persisting even as humans die. Emily's family never listens to the recordings. They can't bear to hear her mentioned in those circumstances, to know exactly when and how she died, to hear her suffering acknowledged by someone who couldn't save her. They prefer to remember her as she was before, full of life and energy and purpose. The broadcast represents an ending they don't want to dwell on. Daniel Rothman's ex-wife does listen years after the outbreak. She cries hearing his voice again, hearing him mention her briefly, hearing him die slowly over 6 hours. She wishes she'd stayed in touch, wishes their divorce hadn't been so complete, wishes she could have said goodbye. But she couldn't have known. No one could have known. His nephew Jake becomes a radio journalist himself. He studies his uncle's work, learns from his techniques, tries to honor his memory by pursuing the same profession. He's good at it, talented and dedicated. He sometimes wonders if he's doing it for himself or for the uncle he barely knew, the man who became a symbol of something larger than himself. The construction workers who opened the chamber, those who survived, carry guilt for the rest of their lives. They did nothing wrong, followed all the protocols they knew to follow, couldn't have anticipated what they were releasing. But knowing you're not to blame doesn't stop the feeling of being responsible. They opened the door that let death into the city. That fact haunts them. The hazmat technician who cleared the chamber in the initial assessment never recovers from the mistake. He followed standard procedures, tested for known contaminants, found nothing dangerous by the standards he was trained to use. But he missed it. He declared safe what was lethal. He dies by suicide 3 years after the outbreak, unable to live with the weight of his failure, however unintentional. The mayor who declared the emergency, Susan Bradford, serves out the crisis remotely from an evacuation site outside the quarantine zone. She survives physically, but her political career is destroyed. Whether fair or not, she becomes the face of failed government response. The person who couldn't save her city. She retreats from public life entirely, moving to a rural area where no one knows her name or her history. The CDC team that studied the virus publishes extensive findings. Their work advances virological science significantly, contributing to treatments for other diseases and improvements in biosafety protocols. They're praised in academic circles but struggle with the source of their data. Every advancement comes from the deaths of millions. Every paper they publish is built on a foundation of corpses. The ethical weight is crushing. Debates continue for years about whether the city should be rebuilt or abandoned entirely. Preservationists argue for maintaining it as a memorial. Developers argue for clearing it and starting fresh. Survivors are split, some wanting to reclaim their home, others wanting to let it rest in peace. No consensus emerges, and the city remains in limbo, neither properly abandoned nor truly restored. Tourism develops, morbid and controversial. People want to see the dead city, to walk the empty streets, to stand where millions died. Some survivors welcome this, seeing it as ensuring people remember and learn. Others find it offensive. Disaster tourism capitalizing on tragedy. Regulations are put in place, but enforcement is difficult. The dead city draws visitors despite all obstacles. Graffiti artists paint murals on abandoned buildings, massive portraits of the dead of Daniel Rothman and Emily Harper and countless others, names written in letters 20 feet high, quotes from the final broadcast rendered in spray paint and stencil. The city becomes an outdoor gallery of grief and remembrance, unauthorized but tolerated. Religious groups erect memorials, crosses and stars and crescents, symbols from every faith. They hold services in the empty streets, praying for the dead, seeking meaning in catastrophe. Some find comfort in belief that the victims are in a better place. Others find the religious response inadequate, unable to reconcile faith with such senseless death. The city becomes a theological battleground as well as a physical one. Conspiracy theories develop as they always do. Claims that the outbreak was intentional, a population control measure or a terrorist attack, or a government experiment gone wrong. Claims that the virus was a hoax, that the deaths were exaggerated, that the quarantine was about control rather than safety. Evidence doesn't matter to true believers. The tragedy becomes fodder for those who need simple explanations for complex horrors. Survivors push back against these theories, sharing their experiences, showing their scars, demanding acknowledgement of reality. But arguing with conspiracy theorists is exhausting and often futile. Most survivors eventually stop engaging, focusing their energy on healing rather than defending truth against those determined to deny it. Mental health impacts persist for decades. PTSD rates among survivors approach 100%. Depression and anxiety are nearly universal. Substance abuse problems are common. Suicide rates are elevated. The psychological damage from watching a city die, from losing everyone you knew, from surviving when so many didn't, proves difficult to overcome. Support groups form, survivors helping survivors. They meet in person and online, sharing coping strategies and memories, trying to process collective trauma. Some find healing through community. Others remain isolated, unable to connect even with people who shared their experience. Trauma affects everyone differently, and there's no single path to recovery. Children born in the aftermath to survivor parents show elevated rates of anxiety and depression even though they didn't experience the outbreak themselves. Inherited trauma passed from parent to child through behavior and environment. The plague's impact extends beyond its immediate victims, poisoning the next generation as well. Medical research into treatment for trauma accelerates, funded partly by guilt money from governments that created the weapon in the first place. New therapies are developed, new medications, new approaches to helping people heal from catastrophic experiences. Some work, some don't. Healing is slow and incomplete at best. Economic impacts ripple outward from the dead city. Regional commerce collapses. Supply chains are disrupted. Industries that depended on the city as a hub or market fail or relocate. Unemployment spikes across the region. The disaster's reach extends far beyond the quarantine zone, affecting millions who never contracted the virus, but whose lives are still destroyed by its impact. Insurance companies face bankruptcy from death claims. Some refuse to pay, citing acts of war or government action clauses. Lawsuits multiply. Courts are overwhelmed. Years pass before most claims are settled, and many survivors never receive what they're owed. The financial devastation compounds the human devastation. Real estate values collapse not just in the city but for hundreds of miles around it. No one wants to live near the place where millions died, regardless of whether the actual danger is gone. Homes and businesses become worthless overnight. People lose their life savings in property devaluation. Another form of loss, another way the disaster spreads. The national economy suffers a significant recession. Confidence shaken, consumption down, investment retreating. It takes years to recover, and the recovery is uneven. Some sectors bounce back quickly, others never do. The outbreak becomes a historical demarcation point, a before and after that divides economic history. Politically, the disaster shifts priorities. Biosafety becomes a major issue. Funding for public health increases dramatically. Regulations tighten around research facilities and hazardous material storage. The government creates new agencies and oversight mechanisms trying to prevent another forgotten chamber from killing another city. But bureaucracies are slow and imperfect. Regulations create compliance burdens, but don't guarantee safety. Oversight is only as effective as the people conducting it, and people make mistakes. The system improves but remains fallible. Another disaster remains possible, perhaps inevitable, given enough time and continued biological research. Elections following the disaster punish incumbents regardless of actual responsibility. Voters want someone to blame, someone to punish, some sense that there will be accountability. Most of the officials voted out had nothing to do with creating or storing the virus, but that doesn't matter. They were in power when it happened, so they're held responsible. The party in power loses heavily in the next cycle. The incoming administration promises reform and accountability, better oversight and preparation for future crises. Some promises are kept. Most are diluted or abandoned once the immediate crisis fades from public attention. The cycle of outrage and reform and retrenchment continues as always. International relations are strained. Other nations demand access to information about the virus and the bioweapons program that created it. Some demands are met, others refused on national security grounds. Trust between nations erodes. Old alliances are questioned. New tensions emerge. The disaster's political impacts prove as complex as its human impacts. Some allies distance themselves, concerned about association with a nation that created such a weapon and then lost control of it. Trade relationships suffer. Diplomatic ties cool. Military cooperation becomes more difficult. The reputational damage is severe and long-lasting. Enemies exploit the disaster for propaganda purposes. They point to it as evidence of American recklessness and incompetence, as proof that the nation cannot be trusted with dangerous technologies. Some of the propaganda is exaggerated or false, but the core truth is undeniable. American weapon killed millions of Americans through negligence and failure. Years turn to decades. The first generation of post-outbreak children grow up and have children of their own. The disaster recedes into history, still remembered but less immediate, less visceral, It becomes something that happened to previous generations, important but distant. Educational curricula include the outbreak as a case study in disaster response, public health, biological warfare, and government accountability. Students read transcripts of Daniel Rothman's final broadcast, analyze what went wrong, debate what could have been done differently, write papers about it, take tests on it, move on to the next topic. The 50th anniversary approaches. Survivors are elderly now, those few who remain. Most of the millions who experienced the outbreak secondhand, who lived through the quarantine from outside, who watched it unfold on television, have died of natural causes. The living memory of the event is fading, being replaced by historical memory, by accounts and recordings rather than direct experience. A major documentary is produced, interviewing the last survivors, visiting the still empty city, examining newly declassified documents about the bioweapons program. It wins awards and sparks renewed interest in the outbreak. New generations learn about it, are shocked by it, wonder how such a thing could have happened. The pattern is familiar: horror, then grief, then anger, then acceptance, then forgetting. Each generation rediscovers the disaster, processes it, files it away. The details fade even as the broad outlines remain. The dead city becomes a monument whose meaning shifts with time and perspective. Some survivors write memoirs as they age, wanting to preserve their experiences before it's too late. The books are painful to read, filled with loss and trauma and survivor's guilt. But they're also important personal testimonies that statistics can never capture. They sell modestly, are reviewed respectfully, or added to library collections and academic databases. Emily Harper's family publishes a biography of her life, compiled from interviews with friends and colleagues, from her own writings and recordings. It portrays her as dedicated and talented, as someone who cared deeply about journalism and public service. The final chapter about her death is brief and respectful, acknowledging the horror without dwelling on it unnecessarily. Daniel Rothman's nephew writes a book about his uncle, focusing on his broadcasting career and final transmission. He interviews people who knew Daniel, examines recordings from throughout his career, analyzes his techniques and approaches. The book is well received, introducing new audiences to the man behind the voice, the person beyond the symbol. Technology changes how the outbreak is remembered. Virtual reality recreations of the dead city allow people to experience it safely, walking through empty streets, seeing abandoned buildings, hearing ambient sounds from that day. Some survivors participate in creating these recreations, ensuring accuracy. Others refuse, unwilling to have their trauma turned into entertainment. Artificial intelligence is used to analyze Daniel's broadcast, to map his emotional state across the hours, to identify patterns in his speech and delivery. The analysis yields insights into how humans cope with catastrophic stress, how professional training persists even as the person deteriorates, how the need for connection drives behavior even when death is certain. Some find these technological approaches valuable, seeing them as ways to preserve and learn from the past. Others find them disturbing, feeling that trauma and death shouldn't be quantified or simulated, that some things should be left alone. The debate continues, unresolved, as technology enables new forms of remembrance and exploitation. The virus samples stored in research facilities become subjects of controversy. Some argue they should be destroyed, that nothing good can come from preserving such a deadly pathogen, that the risk of accidental release or intentional misuse is too great. Others argue they should be kept for study, that understanding the virus is essential for developing defenses against similar threats. Security at the facilities holding samples is extraordinary. Multiple layers of containment, armed guards, surveillance systems, strict protocols for access. But no system is perfect. Occasional breaches occur, usually minor, always terrifying. Each incident reignites the debate about whether the samples should exist at all. International inspections verify that only authorized facilities possess samples, that the virus isn't being weaponized or distributed. The inspections are supposed to provide assurance, but they also highlight how many places possess samples, how many opportunities exist for something to go wrong. The existence of the virus in any form remains a threat. Climate change adds new concerns. Rising seas threaten the coastal areas of the dead city. Increased storm intensity could damage containment structures around the construction site. Temperature changes could affect long-term stability of the ruins. The disaster from decades ago creates ongoing environmental management challenges. Proposals to properly seal the most contaminated areas are debated but not implemented due to cost and complexity. The ruins remain, slowly deteriorating, nature and weather breaking down what humans built. Eventually, perhaps time will erase the city entirely, burying it under new growth and debris until nothing visible remains. But the memory persists in other forms. The names on the memorial, the recordings in archives, the books and films and lectures, the survivor stories passed to their descendants. The city may fade physically, but the knowledge of what happened there, the warning it represents, continues as long as humans remember. And humans do remember, because forgetting is dangerous. Forgetting allows repetition. Forgetting permits the same mistakes to be made again. The dead city stands as a reminder, a cautionary tale, a monument to what happens when we create weapons we can't control and forget dangers we think we've sealed away. The survivors in their final years become increasingly focused on this mission of remembrance. They give talks at schools and conferences, they record oral histories, they establish foundations and scholarships. They do everything they can to ensure that when they're gone, the story doesn't die with them. Some of them return to the city in old age, walking through streets they once knew, visiting homes they once lived in, standing at the construction site where it all began. They cry for what was lost. They pay respects to the dead. They bear witness one last time before they too pass from this world. The last survivor dies on a quiet morning in autumn, 93 years old, in a hospital bed surrounded by family. She was a child when the outbreak happened, barely 5 years old, too young to understand what was happening, old enough to remember the fear and confusion. She spent her life telling her story, ensuring people knew, fighting against forgetting. Her death makes headlines. The last living person to survive the outbreak is gone. Everyone now alive only knows the disaster through history, through records and testimonies and monuments. It has passed fully into the realm of memory rather than experience. An era has ended. Ceremonies mark her passing and the passage of the disaster from living memory to historical memory. Bells toll in cities across the nation. Moments of silence are observed. The president issues a statement about remembrance and learning from history. The coverage is extensive but brief. Then the news cycle moves on to other things, as it always does. The dead city remains. Buildings still stand, though increasingly weathered and damaged. Streets still trace their original paths, though increasingly overgrown. The radio station building still contains the studio where Daniel died, though the equipment has long since been removed to museums. The physical evidence of the disaster persists, even as the living witnesses vanish. Decades more pass, a century since the outbreak. Everyone who experienced it, even secondhand, is long dead. Its history now, as distant as World War II or the Civil War, something that happened to people long ago, important but removed from immediate experience. Historians debate interpretations and details, arguing about exactly who knew what when, about whether the disaster could have been prevented, about what lessons should be learned. New documents are declassified periodically, revealing new details, sparking new debates. The academic industry of studying the outbreak continues. The city has been largely reclaimed by nature. Trees grow through buildings, vines cover walls, animals make homes in the ruins. It's become a de facto wilderness preserve, a strange hybrid of urban ruins and natural habitat. Ecologists study it, fascinated by how quickly nature rebounds when humans disappear. Some areas are excavated and studied by archaeologists, treating the dead city like an ancient ruin. They carefully document what they find, creating a detailed record of life in the early 21st century as preserved by sudden abandonment. The remains tell stories about how people lived, what they valued, how they died. Bodies are still discovered occasionally in sealed buildings or collapsed structures. Each one is treated with respect, identified if possible, given proper burial. DNA databases help match remains to missing persons from the outbreak. Families get closure decades after their loved ones died, learning what happened, where they ended up, having something to bury at last. The memorial with 7 million names requires constant maintenance. Stone erodes, metal corrodes, elements fade. Preservationists work continuously to repair and restore it, ensuring the names remain legible. It's a permanent job, a commitment to keeping the record intact as long as civilization persists. New memorials are added over time. Sculptures depicting the dead, gardens planted with 7 million flowers, one for each victim. An eternal flame burning in the center of the memorial complex. Art installations created by descendants of survivors. The memorial grows and evolves, becoming a vast complex dedicated to remembrance. Schools visit on field trips. Students walk among the names, trying to comprehend the scale of loss. Teachers explain what happened, why it matters, what can be learned. Most students are affected by it, at least briefly. Some are inspired to study medicine or public health or biology, wanting to prevent future disasters. Most just feel sad and overwhelmed and eventually move on with their lives. The broadcast archives are digitized and preserved in multiple locations, ensuring they'll survive even if one archive is lost. Daniel Rothman's voice is stored in formats that didn't exist when he recorded it, ensuring it can be accessed by technologies not yet invented. His words will outlast him by centuries, perhaps millennia, as long as humans keep records. Emily Harper's scholarship continues, funded by an endowment that has grown over decades. Hundreds of journalists have received it, many going on to distinguished careers. They all carry a piece of her legacy, her commitment to public service and truth-telling, even if most never knew her personally. The construction company that was working at the Riverside site when the chamber was discovered went bankrupt from lawsuits and lost contracts. The workers scattered to other jobs, other cities, other lives, but they never forgot. Some of them formed a survivor support group that met monthly for decades, helping each other cope with the guilt and trauma of having been there when it started. The families of the hazmat technician who cleared the initial assessment advocated for better training and protocols for hazmat workers, hoping to prevent similar mistakes. Their advocacy contributed to improved standards, better equipment, more rigorous certification requirements. It didn't bring him back, but it gave his death meaning beyond failure. Politicians still reference the outbreak when debating biosafety legislation or public health funding. It's become a standard rhetorical touchstone, a reminder of what can happen when safety is compromised or preparation is inadequate. The disaster serves a function in political discourse, though whether it actually prevents policy mistakes is unclear. The frequency 104.7 FM remains silent in many markets, a tribute to Daniel Rothman and what his station represented. Some broadcasters push to reclaim the frequency, arguing that empty bandwidth serves no purpose, that the best tribute would be continuing the tradition of quality broadcasting. Others insist it should remain silent, a permanent memorial in the electromagnetic spectrum. The debate is ultimately meaningless. Radio itself is declining, replaced by internet streaming and podcasts and other technologies. In another few decades, broadcast radio might not exist at all, making the question of what frequency is used or not used irrelevant. But for now, 104.7 remains quiet, a ghost frequency for a ghost city. Students of broadcasting study the ethical questions raised by Daniel's final transmission. Should he have stayed on air? Was broadcasting his own death exploitative or noble? Did he serve his audience or simply indulge in a final performance? There are no right answers, only perspectives and debates that continue year after year. Some journalism schools use the broadcast as a teaching tool, analyzing decision-making under extreme stress. They examine each choice Daniel made, each word he spoke, trying to understand what drove his behavior. They debate what they would do in similar circumstances, hoping they never have to find out. The recording remains powerful even a century later. Hearing the fear in Daniel's voice, the determination to keep broadcasting, the gradual deterioration as the virus kills him, the final silence, it's immediate and human in a way that historical accounts can never be. It makes the disaster real in a visceral way that statistics cannot. Ethicists debate whether the recording should continue to be publicly available. It's disturbing, potentially traumatizing to listeners, arguably exploitative of Daniel's suffering. But it's also historically important, irreplaceable primary source material, powerful testimony to what happened. Most archives maintain access but with warnings and age restrictions. The virus's genetic sequence is fully mapped and understood. Scientists can explain exactly how it killed so efficiently, what mechanisms it used to attack the lungs, why it spread so rapidly. The knowledge contributes to broader understanding of virology and development of broad-spectrum antivirals. But the virus itself remains frozen in secured facilities, deadly potential preserved indefinitely. Occasional proposals to destroy all remaining samples resurface periodically, each time scientific and security communities debate the merits. Each time the decision is made to maintain samples for continued research and defense purposes. Each time protesters argue this is too dangerous, too risky, too similar to the thinking that created the disaster in the first place. The argument that research could develop defenses against similar bioweapons remains compelling. But so does the argument that possessing the virus creates risks of accidental release or intentional misuse. The tension between security through preparation and security through elimination never resolves. The samples remain, locked away, dangerous, studied, feared. Synthetic biology advances to the point where the virus could be recreated from published genetic sequences even if all samples were destroyed. This reality undermines arguments for destruction while simultaneously making security concerns more acute. If anyone with sufficient equipment and knowledge could remake the virus, what's the point of securing or destroying existing samples? The question becomes how to make the information available for defensive research while preventing it from being used to create weapons. Access restrictions are implemented. Genetic sequences are published with missing sections that prevent complete reconstruction. Security clearances are required for certain information. The measures help but can't eliminate risk entirely. Bioethicists wrestle with the dual-use dilemma. Research that could save lives could also end them. Knowledge that could protect populations could also destroy them. There are no clean answers, only imperfect compromises and ongoing vigilance against misuse. The Dead City stands as testament to what happens when vigilance fails. Educational programs teach about the outbreak in the context of biosafety and bioethics. Medical students learn about the virus's pathology. Engineering students learn about containment failures. Public health students learn about epidemic response. Ethics students learn about dual-use research and institutional responsibility. The disaster becomes a comprehensive case study across multiple disciplines. The lessons are important, but whether they're learned is questionable. Each generation must learn them anew, and some lessons are forgotten despite the best efforts of educators and memorialists. Humans are imperfect learners, and institutional knowledge degrades over time. The possibility of repetition never fully disappears. Climate change eventually forces abandonment of the memorial complex. Rising seas and increased storms make the site untenable. The decision to relocate or redesign the memorial sparks controversy. How do you move 7 million names? How do you preserve the meaning when changing the location? Eventually, a solution is found. The names are digitized and projected on a new memorial built on higher ground. Physical copies are created using new materials designed to last for millennia. The old site is left to the sea, becoming a submerged memorial, an underwater tomb for a dead city. Some find this fitting, others tragic. The new memorial incorporates modern technology, offering interactive exhibits and virtual reality experiences. Visitors can see the city as it was before the outbreak, can walk through recreations of the streets, can hear Daniel's final broadcast in spatial audio while standing in a recreation of the studio. Some survivors' descendants appreciate these innovations. Others find them too much, too commercialized, too distant from the reality of what happened. Debates about appropriate memorialization continue. How much technology is too much? How can you honor the dead without exploiting them? How do you make tragedy accessible to new generations while respecting the gravity of what occurred? The questions have no final answers, only ongoing negotiation between competing values and perspectives. The city itself is eventually declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected as a cultural and historical landmark. This grants international recognition and some funding for preservation, but also brings more visitors and more pressure to make the site accessible. Balancing preservation with access proves challenging. Parts of the city are restored for visitor safety while maintaining historical accuracy. Walkways are created through the ruins, viewing platforms are erected, information panels explain what visitors are seeing. The site becomes more managed, more curated, more tourist-friendly. Some preservationists object, preferring to leave the ruins untouched. Others see it as necessary for education and remembrance. The number of annual visitors grows into the millions. People come from around the world to see the dead city, to pay respects, to learn about what happened. For some it's pilgrimage, for others tourism, for most something in between. The site becomes economically important to the surrounding region, creating jobs and supporting local businesses. This economic dependence on disaster commemoration creates uncomfortable dynamics. The tragedy becomes monetized, commodified, turned into an industry. Hotels and restaurants cater to memorial visitors. Gift shops sell tasteful souvenirs. Tour companies offer guided experiences. The Dead City supports living economies built on remembering death. Descendants of survivors have mixed feelings about this development. Some appreciate that the disaster is remembered and economically valued. Others find it distasteful that profit is being made from their ancestors' suffering. The tension between remembrance and commercialization never fully resolves. Media representations of the outbreak multiply over the decades. Documentaries, dramatizations, novels, films, plays, operas, symphonies. Artists working in every medium find inspiration in the tragedy, creating works that interpret and reinterpret what happened. Quality varies widely. Some works are respectful and insightful. Others are exploitative and sensational. Survivors' descendants, often object to fictional portrayals, particularly those that take liberties with facts or create romanticized versions of events. They argue that the real story is dramatic enough without embellishment, that changing facts disrespects the dead and distorts history. Artists argue for creative freedom and the value of emotional truth over literal fact. The conflicts rarely resolve to everyone's satisfaction. Daniel Rothman has been portrayed by numerous actors in various productions. Some performances capture his dedication and fear effectively. Others miss the mark, turning him into a simple hero rather than a complex human being doing his job under impossible circumstances. Emily appears in some portrayals, but often as a minor character, which frustrates those who want her recognized as an equal partner in the final broadcast. The most accurate and respected portrayal is a stage play that uses only the actual words from the broadcast transcript spoken by a single actor over 6 hours in real time. It's grueling for actor and audience, but those who experience it report being profoundly moved. The play tours internationally, becoming a cultural phenomenon and introducing new audiences to the story. Academic studies of the outbreak number in the thousands. Every aspect has been examined from every angle. The virology, the epidemiology, the public health response, the media coverage, the political fallout, the economic impacts, the psychological effects, the memorial practices, the cultural representations. Libraries have entire sections dedicated to outbreak studies. This vast academic apparatus creates careers and advances knowledge, but also risks turning tragedy into abstraction. When you've read hundreds of scholarly articles about the outbreak, it can become difficult to remember that you're studying real deaths, real suffering, real people. Academic distance serves important analytical purposes, but can also create emotional disconnect. Some scholars make it their life's work to study the outbreak, producing books and papers and lectures over decades. They become experts, the go-to sources for information and interpretation. But expertise can calcify into dogma, and even experts can be wrong. Debates between scholars can become bitter, losing sight of the human reality beneath the academic arguments. New generations of scholars bring new perspectives and methodologies. They use tools and frameworks their predecessors didn't have, asking questions previous researchers didn't think to ask. They challenge established narratives and find new meanings in old evidence. The scholarship evolves, deepens, complicates, never reaching a final definitive account because history is always being reinterpreted. 100th anniversary commemorations are major events. World leaders attend. Massive ceremonies are held. New monuments are unveiled. The media coverage is extensive and global. For a brief moment, the whole world focuses on remembering what happened in the city a century before. Speeches emphasize the importance of learning from history, of maintaining vigilance against biological threats, of honoring those who died by building a safer world. The rhetoric is moving and well-intentioned. Whether it translates into meaningful action is less clear. Political will is short-lived and priorities shift quickly once the anniversary passes. The youngest person to remember the outbreak firsthand would be over 100 years old now. None are known to still be alive. The transition to purely historical memory is complete. Everything known about the outbreak now comes from records, not living testimony. This changes how it's remembered and understood, making it feel more distant, more abstract, more like ancient history than living memory. But the records are extensive. Thousands of hours of video and audio, millions of pages of documents, personal diaries and official reports, medical records and financial documents, social media archives, and government communications. The outbreak may be the best documented disaster in human history, leaving an incredibly detailed record for future generations to study. This documentation is both gift and burden. It ensures the events won't be forgotten or easily distorted, but it also means future generations can see every failure, every mistake, every moment of suffering in excruciating detail. They inherit not just the memory, but the full weight of what happened, preserved in perfect fidelity. The construction site where the chamber was opened is now a memorial park, carefully landscaped, thoughtfully designed. The actual opening where the workers descended has been sealed beneath a glass floor, allowing visitors to look down into the darkness where the virus was released. Many find it chilling to stand there, knowing what came from that hole in the ground. Plaques name the construction workers who were there that day, both those who died and those who survived. Their stories are told in exhibit halls surrounding the memorial. Visitors learn about their lives, their families, their dreams, their roles in the disaster. They were ordinary people doing ordinary work who happened to be in the wrong place at the worst possible time. The bar where the virus spread, Donovan's, was demolished decades ago, but its location is marked. A small memorial lists the names of patrons who died after being there that night. It's a quieter site than the main memorial, less visited but important to those who want to understand the complete story of how the outbreak unfolded. Hospitals that treated victims are marked with memorial plaques, acknowledging the healthcare workers who died trying to save others. Many doctors and nurses stayed at their posts even as the system collapsed, providing what care they could until they themselves succumbed. Their dedication is honored alongside the other dead, recognized as heroes who maintained their duty in impossible circumstances. Emily Harper has a statue at the journalism school she attended. It shows her at a desk, focused on work, headphones on, absorbed in the task. Students touch her hand for luck before exams or important presentations. The bronze there has been worn bright by countless touches over the years. She's become a patron saint of sorts for young journalists, a reminder of dedication and purpose. Daniel Rothman's name has been given to several awards and institutions. The Broadcasting Award honors excellence in crisis reporting. The scholarship supports radio journalism students. The school in his hometown bears his name. His legacy extends far beyond his final 6 hours, encompassing his entire career and the values he represented. The city that died has a name that has become synonymous with bioweapon disasters. People speak of another city name the way they might reference Chernobyl or Hiroshima. It's become a reference point, shorthand for a particular type of catastrophe. The city's identity is now inseparable from its destruction, which some descendants find unfortunate but accept as inevitable. Survivors' organizations maintained annual gatherings for decades, meetings where those who lived through the outbreak could connect with others who understood. As survivors aged and died, the gatherings shrank until they could no longer be sustained. The final gathering was held on the 75th anniversary, attended by 12 survivors, the last who were able to travel. They shared memories, shed tears, and said goodbye, knowing they likely wouldn't gather again. When the last survivor died, the organizations transitioned to descendants groups. Children and grandchildren of survivors maintained connections, sharing family stories and supporting preservation efforts. It's different from the original survivors community, filtered through generation and time, but still important. They carry the memory forward, refusing to let it fade entirely. Genetic studies of survivors' descendants show no significant differences from the general population. The virus didn't leave genetic markers or create hereditary immunity. Whatever allowed some people to survive was a combination of chance, individual immune response, and random variation. There's no way to identify descendants genetically, only through family history and records. This lack of genetic legacy is both reassuring and sobering. It means the virus didn't permanently alter the human population, but it also means there's no biological protection against future similar outbreaks. No inherited immunity that might provide security. Each generation remains just as vulnerable as the one that died. The virus samples remain in storage, now over a century old but still viable when tested. Security protocols have improved dramatically since the early samples were stored, but the fundamental dilemma remains. The samples could contribute to defensive research or could cause catastrophe if released. They exist in a state of pure potential, waiting to be either weapon or vaccine or forgotten danger. Some of the research has proven valuable. Understanding the virus's mechanisms contributed to development of broad-spectrum antivirals and improved respiratory treatments. Lives have been saved by knowledge gained from studying what killed millions. Whether this justifies maintaining the samples is debated endlessly, with no resolution satisfying all parties. The ruins themselves are deteriorating beyond the point where complete preservation is possible. Buildings are collapsing, infrastructure is failing, nature is reclaiming everything despite preservation efforts. Eventually the physical city will be gone entirely, returned to earth and water and green growth. The memorial sites will remain, but the actual ruins will vanish. This natural decay raises questions about what should be preserved and how. Should ruins be stabilized artificially, maintained indefinitely at great expense? Or should they be allowed to decay naturally, documented thoroughly, but not prevented from returning to nature? Different stakeholders have different answers based on different values and priorities. Some argue the decay itself is part of the story, that watching the ruins disappear reminds us that nothing lasts forever, that even disaster fades given enough time. Others argue that preservation is a moral obligation, that we owe the dead the maintenance of physical memory as long as humanly possible. The debate continues as the city slowly crumbles. Technology that didn't exist when the outbreak occurred now makes perfect digital preservation possible. The entire city has been scanned in 3 dimensions at millimeter resolution. Every building, every street, every detail captured and stored. Future generations will be able to experience perfect reconstructions of the ruins, even after the physical structures are gone. This digital preservation enables new forms of engagement with the site. Virtual reality allows people anywhere in the world to walk through the city. Augmented reality overlays information and context onto physical visits. Artificial intelligence can answer questions and provide personalized tours. The city exists now in both physical and digital space, ensuring it will persist in some form indefinitely. But digital preservation raises its own questions. Is a perfect digital copy the same as the physical place? Does walking through a VR reconstruction of the ruins carry the same weight as standing in the actual city where millions died? Can virtual experience replace physical presence, or is something essential lost in translation? Most visitors who experience both report that the physical site has an impact the virtual cannot match. Standing on actual ground where actual people died creates an emotional resonance that digital reconstruction, however perfect, cannot fully replicate. But for those who cannot visit in person, the digital options provide access and education that would otherwise be impossible. The outbreak's place in global consciousness shifts over time. Initially, it was immediate news, a current event, something happening now. Then it became recent history, something that happened to people's parents or grandparents. Now it's distant history, something that happened long ago to people long dead. Each transit changes how it's understood and what it means to succeeding generation. For the generation born a century after the outbreak, it's as historically remote as World War I or the 1918 influenza pandemic. Still important, still taught in schools, but not immediate or viscerally real. They study it the way previous generations studied ancient disasters, with intellectual interest but emotional distance. Only when they visit the memorials or hear Daniel's broadcast do some of them connect with it as something more than historical fact. This is the inevitable progression. All tragedies fade from living memory into history. All disasters eventually become lessons rather than experiences. The process is natural and necessary. Humans cannot carry the full emotional weight of every tragedy forever. But something is lost in the fading, some immediacy and reality that exists when survivors can still speak and remember. The dead city has become a place of quiet. Nature sounds predominate: birds, wind through ruined buildings, rain on broken pavement. Human sounds are rare and usually come from visitors moving through the memorial zones. The city that once roared with millions of voices and vehicles and the mechanical sounds of urban life is now nearly silent. Some find this silence peaceful, a kind of rest for the dead. Others find it eerie, the wrongness of a city without city sounds. The silence itself becomes part of the memorial experience, a sensory reminder of absence, of the voices that will never speak again, of the life that ended here. Occasionally sounds interrupt the quiet: thunder from storms, wildlife moving through buildings, the crash of a structure finally collapsing after years of slow decay. Each sound is stark against the prevailing silence, shocking in its abruptness, then absorbed back into quiet as if it never occurred. The memorial sites themselves remain active and relatively noisy. Visitors talking quietly, reading names aloud, crying. Tour guides explaining history. Children asking questions. The memorial is where human presence is concentrated, where the dead city connects with the living world, where memory is actively maintained through voice and presence. At night, when the memorial closes and visitors leave, the entire site falls into complete silence and darkness. Security systems operate quietly. Cameras record nothing but stillness. The city sleeps, or perhaps doesn't sleep, but simply exists in a state beyond sleep, beyond life, beyond anything except persistent. Some security guards and maintenance workers report feeling uncomfortable in the ruins at night, not because they believe in ghosts, but because the absence of life in a place built for millions of lives feels fundamentally wrong. The human brain expects cities to be full of people, and when confronted with absolute emptiness, it rebels. Others find peace in the night quiet, a chance to think and reflect away from the crowds and noise of memorial activities. They walk through the ruins with flashlights, seeing the city in shadows, feeling the weight of history in silence, processing their own thoughts about mortality and memory and meaning. The sky above the dead city is notably dark, clear of light pollution that affects inhabited areas. Stars are visible in stunning clarity on clear nights. Some visitors specifically time their trips to experience the ruins under stars, finding a kind of cosmic perspective in the juxtaposition of human tragedy beneath endless space. Astronomers occasionally use the site for observation, taking advantage of the darkness. There's something poetic in pointing telescopes toward infinity from ground where millions died and contemplating the vastness of universe from the ruins of human civilization. Scale and perspective shift dramatically when you look at stars from a place of mass death. The seasonal cycle continues indifferent to human tragedy. Spring brings new growth pushing through pavement and buildings. Summer brings heat and lush green reclamation of urban space. Fall brings colors and dying leaves covering streets. Winter brings snow that blankets ruins in white, making the dead city look peaceful and clean, hiding decay under fresh covering. Each season brings different visitors and different emotional tones to the memorial. Spring visitors often focus on renewal and continuation of life. Summer brings families and educational groups. Fall brings contemplative individuals drawn by the season's natural melancholy. Winter brings the fewest visitors but often the most serious, those willing to endure cold for the chance to experience the sight in snow-covered silence. The memorial calendar marks significant dates. The anniversary of the outbreak itself is the major annual event, with ceremonies and speeches and crowds, but there are smaller remembrances throughout the year. Emily Harper's birthday, the date when the last survivor died, the day the memorial was dedicated. Each date provides structure for ongoing remembrance. Some descendants maintain private traditions, visiting on dates significant to their family, a loved one's birthday, an anniversary of death, a date that held meaning before the outbreak. These private remembrances happen alongside and sometimes in contrast to the public ceremonies, quiet personal grief existing within larger collective mourning. The dead city functions as a mirror in which each generation sees itself reflected. Early generations saw warning about bioweapons and Cold War dangers. Later generations saw lessons about institutional failure and the importance of transparency. Current generations see broader themes about human hubris and the unintended consequences of technology. What people see in the ruins says as much about them as about the outbreak itself. This multiplicity of meanings is both strength and weakness. The disaster teaches many lessons, reaching many audiences in many ways, but it can also become so laden with symbolism and interpretation that the specific historical reality gets obscured. The dead city risks becoming a blank screen on which people project their own concerns rather than a specific place where specific people died in specific circumstances. Historians work to maintain factual clarity against interpretive drift. They publish detailed accounts, correct errors in public understanding, push back against simplified narratives. Their work is important, but fighting against human tendency to shape history into story, to find meanings and patterns that may not have existed in the chaotic reality of events as they unfolded. The truth is that the outbreak was both preventable and inevitable. Preventable in that specific failures of procedure and oversight created the opportunity for disaster. Inevitable in that those failures were products of larger systems and human tendencies that make such disasters likely given enough time and opportunities. Both things are true simultaneously, and holding both truths in mind is difficult but necessary for real understanding. The construction workers who opened the chamber followed protocols available to them. The hazmat tech who cleared it used methods he was trained in. The city officials who allowed work to continue made reasonable decisions based on information they had. Each individual actor in the tragedy did nothing obviously wrong given what they knew when they knew it. Yet collectively those reasonable individual decisions created catastrophe. This is the nature of systemic failure, of disasters that emerge from ordinary actions and normal procedures rather than extraordinary malice or incompetence. Understanding this is crucial for preventing future disasters, but deeply unsatisfying for those who want clear villains to blame. Some people involved in the outbreak's early stages died never knowing the role they played. The construction worker who first broke through into the chamber died before symptoms appeared, killed instantly in an unrelated accident on his way home from work that day. He never knew he'd helped release a plague, never knew his name would appear in historical accounts of the disaster. Others lived long enough to understand their role but died in the outbreak itself before facing questions or accountability. The site supervisor who authorized opening the chamber without additional consultation died in the first wave. He knew what he'd done for less than a day before the virus killed him. Whether he would have faced criminal charges had he survived is debated by legal scholars. Still others survived and spent decades wrestling with guilt and responsibility. The construction company owner who hired the hazmat assessment lived through the outbreak by chance of being out of the city that week. He returned to find his business destroyed, most of his employees dead, and himself facing lawsuits and criminal investigation. He was eventually cleared of criminal liability but never recovered psychologically. Justice in the aftermath of disaster is always incomplete. Some who bear responsibility die. Some escape through legal technicalities or protected status. Some accept responsibility and face consequences while others deny and deflect. Families of victims seeking accountability rarely find it satisfying. The law is not designed to handle catastrophes where millions die through systemic failure rather than individual crime. Civil suits were more successful than criminal prosecutions. Companies were bankrupted, insurance payouts eventually totaled in the hundreds of billions. Government settlements provided some compensation to survivors and victims' families, but no amount of money returns the dead or adequately compensates for such loss. Financial remedies are necessary but insufficient substitutes for justice. The deepest irony is that the weapon that killed millions was created by people who thought they were protecting their nation. The bioweapons program was justified by Cold War fears, by perceived necessity of deterrence, by the logic of mutually assured destruction applied to biological agents. Those who created the virus genuinely believed they were serving their country. This is the most difficult truth to face. The disaster was caused not by villains, but by ordinary people pursuing what they believed were legitimate goals through what they believed were necessary means. It was caused by the same human capacity for rationalization that enables all atrocities, the ability to justify harmful actions through appeal to greater goods or necessary evils. The program that created the virus was shut down when people recognized it had gone too far, that the risks outweighed any potential benefits, but shutting down was done hastily, incompletely, leaving dangerous materials sealed rather than properly destroyed. Good intentions in ending the program created conditions for eventual disaster through inadequate follow-through. This pattern repeats throughout the outbreak narrative. Good intentions leading to harmful outcomes. Reasonable decisions creating unreasonable consequences. Normal human limitations and failures accumulating into catastrophe. It's a very human disaster, which makes it both more comprehensible and more disturbing. It could happen again. It probably will happen again somewhere, somehow, despite all efforts to prevent it. The best that can be hoped is that each disaster teaches enough to make the next one less likely or less severe. That the dead city's existence makes future dead cities marginally less probable. That Daniel's final broadcast makes future witnesses slightly better prepared. That Emily's death makes future journalists fractionally more aware of the risks they take in service of the public. This is modest hope, but perhaps the only realistic kind. Grand hopes for perfect safety or complete prevention are likely to be disappointed. Human systems will always have vulnerabilities. Human beings will always make mistakes. The best we can achieve is marginal improvement, incremental progress, slightly better outcomes than we would have had otherwise. The dead city stands as testament to this modest hope. Yes, millions died. Yes, it was preventable. Yes, it represents failure on every level. But it also represents learning, memorialization, commitment to doing better. The memorial exists. The research continues. The stories are told. Humanity remembers and tries, however imperfectly, to improve. Future generations will judge whether we succeeded in learning enough from the disaster to justify its cost, whether the knowledge gained and precautions implemented prevented sufficient future harm to balance against the immediate harm caused. It's an impossible calculation, weighing millions of actual deaths against unknown number of potential future deaths prevented. But the calculation must be attempted anyway, because the alternative is to declare the deaths meaningless, to say that nothing was learned and nothing changed. That would dishonor the dead more than any commercial exploitation or artistic misrepresentation could. The dead demand meaning, and if meaning isn't inherent in the events themselves, it must be created through how we remember and respond. Daniel Rothman gave meaning through his final broadcast, through his insistence on maintaining connection and providing information even as he died. Emily Harper gave meaning through her dedication to the work, through continuing until she physically couldn't anymore. Every person who died trying to help others, every survivor who dedicated themselves to remembrance and prevention, every researcher who used knowledge from the disaster to save future lives, they all create meaning from tragedy. The dead city itself is meaning made physical. It insists we remember. It demands we learn. It refuses to allow the disaster to be forgotten or minimized. As long as it stands, as long as memorials are maintained, as long as names are read and stories told, the deaths mean something beyond statistics, something beyond academic case studies, something human and real and demanding response. And so the cycle continues. Generation after generation visits the memorial, studies the outbreak, hears Daniel's voice, reads Emily's story, learns the names, feels the weight of what happened. Some are moved to action, others simply remember. All are changed in some small way by encountering the reality of mass death and the persistence of memory. This is all that can be asked, that we remember, that we learn what we can, that we try, however imperfectly, to do better, that we honor the dead not just with monuments but with commitment to preventing similar deaths in the future, that we recognize our own capacity for the failures that caused the disaster and work consciously against them. The dead cannot speak for themselves. Daniel spoke for them in his final hours, but his voice is silent now except in recordings. The memorial speaks in the language of stone and metal and projected light. Historians speak in the language of scholarship and evidence. Descendants speak in the language of inherited grief and determination to remember. All these voices combine into a chorus insisting on meaning, on memory, on mattering. The outbreak happened, the deaths were real, the city fell, but it is not forgotten. It is not meaningless. It is not just statistics in history books. It is human tragedy, human failure, human loss, preserved in memory and memorial for as long as humans exist to remember. And perhaps that is enough. Not justice, not prevention, not redemption, just memory, just the insistence that these lives existed and ended and mattered and will not be erased by time or distance or the inevitable fading of all things. Just the monument and the stories and the voices in the archive saying this happened, these people lived, they are gone but not forgotten. Remember them, learn from them, do better than we did. The sun sets over the dead city as it has every evening for a century. The ruins cast long shadows. The memorial gleams in slanting light. Visitors prepare to leave before closing time. Security begins final round. The cycle repeats, day after day, year after year, as long as the memorial tends and people come to bear witness. Daniel Rothman signed off for the last time over a century ago, but his voice still echoes through the archives, through the memorial speakers, through the consciousness of all who hear his final words. Emily Harper died young, but her example lives in every journalist who chooses service over safety, who stays at their post when others flee, who believes that information and truth matter even in the darkest circumstances. 7 million names remained carved and projected and preserved. 7 million lives ended. 7 million losses that rippled outward through families and communities and generations. The arithmetic of grief cannot be calculated, but the memorial tries anyway, insisting on remembering each individual loss rather than accepting the anonymity of mass death. This is what we owe the dead. This is what the dead city demands. Not perfection, not prevention of all future suffering, not the impossible restoration of what was lost. Just memory, just acknowledgement, just the commitment to bearing witness, to learning what we can, to trying to do better, to never forgetting that these were people, each one complete and valuable and irreplaceable. The last light fades from the ruins. The memorial shifts to evening illumination. Stars begin to appear overhead. The dead city rests in darkness and silence, holding its history, carrying its meanings, waiting for tomorrow's visitors to come and remember once again. This is its purpose now. This is all that remains. And perhaps in the end, this is enough.